Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Football Heritage TV. First and foremost, excuse the hair. Everyone that knows me knows that Friday is haircut and beard day, so I don't put any product in it, and that's why I look like this. But these two wonderful looking gentlemen from At The Whistle Blows, their new channel. Obviously, you all know Billy from the protest. We're going to talk about all things protest, all things Tottenham, all things transfer related. Let me start. Billy, this is your debut on the channel. How are you? And happy Friday to you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to be on, mate. Really, really is. And yeah, nice. Bit nervous ahead of the weekend. Got a big day tomorrow, but looking forward to getting into it. And really thankful for all the support that you give in the channel, the new channel. Really appreciate it coming from a guy like you. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I can feel some smoke being blown up my arse there. Look, yeah, we'll get to the channel in a minute, and we'll get. By the way, everybody in the chat, the pinned comment. If you look, the pinned comment should be, if I'm not wrong, should be the guy's new channel, which is At The Whistle Blows. I want to get them as close to 1,000 subscribers as we can. They're currently sitting this morning on 536. So listen, we're going to have hundreds in here throughout this morning. Please get over there, smash that button. Don't worry about my channel. Smash the button on theirs. Connor is the co-founder, the co-creator of such channel. How are we, Connor?
Yeah, I'm good. And yeah, echo what Billy says. Mate, I won't butter you up quite as much, so thank you so much for the support. It's hugely appreciated. From someone who monopolises YouTube, right, as you've been accused of doing. So, no, we really appreciate the support, and yeah, love to see that people are subscribing already. So, thank you.
Do you know what? When people tell me I monopolise and buy subs, I always say, don't you think I'd have more than 24,500 subscribers if I was monopolising and buying subs? I'd have like 100K. But anyway, it is what it is. Everyone in the chat, get over there and subscribe. I'm gonna keep saying it every 5 minutes. So get over there and subscribe. Let's get that. First of all, let's get to 600, and then we'll take it from there. Please, the link is pinned. Guys, let's start with. I'm going to wait for a few more people to come in before we talk about the protest, because I want that to get as much exposure as possible. And as being someone that's had their mind changed on the protest as well, I think it'll be an interesting conversation. Let's start with Tottenham Hotspur. Oh God, it all starts with Tottenham Hotspur, doesn't it? Tomorrow, home to West Ham. I'm not a fan of this phrase, Billy, but lots of people use the phrase El Sacico, and I don't like it. I think it's silly. I'm personally of the opinion, Billy, that I think Frank is here to stay, because I think that all of the staff they're implementing around him, the players they're giving him, I think that they are in for the long run, and that Vinay has probably learnt from his time at Arsenal that you have to have patience. Do you see this as El Sacico, or is there another term you use for tomorrow?
I don't know, to be honest, mate. I think all roads point to him being here for the long term, and by long term I mean till summer. I don't think they've made a high-profile assistant manager. I know some people might cynically say, "Well, there's an interim for you ready-made now," but I don't believe that's the case. And I think he'll be here. I mean, if we did lose tomorrow, then I do think it would be incredibly toxic, and it might ask the question, but. I'm pretty confident ahead of tomorrow, to be honest. I don't think that's a possibility at this stage. I think West Ham are so poor that I can't see us losing to them at home. So I think if we did lose and the stadium got really toxic, there could be a question, but I don't think that's a realistic reality. I think we have to win tomorrow, right?
Yeah. And I think we will. I mean, Connor, I think the key word that Billy used there was toxic, right? And I guess the question that I'll lead with you is, if the owners finally have a plan, which is a word I use quite a lot, if the owners finally have a plan and they have said that this is our guy and we want to back him long term and we don't want to do anything rash, I guess it's, can they block out the toxicity versus the fans who want a new manager? Like, how does that all come together?
Yeah, I don't think, even if we lost against West Ham, to echo what Billy said, I don't think they'll sack him. I think with that assistant coach coming in, they've even spoke about the fact that Frank was involved, quite heavily in the conversations with Gallagher, and also with interviewing Heitinger as well. I think they definitely see the future until at least the summer.
Mhm.
So I can't see them sacking him. Whether that means longer term, who knows? I think as well, Levy used to do the special thing of sacking a manager to sort of take the heat off of him.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not sure whether this new mob will be the same, but if the protests got big numbers tomorrow, um, and then we lost, and then Burnley was a poor result, you could start to see it perhaps spiral into, look, this is a way of taking the heat off us for a little while, you know. But look, I've been underwhelmed by Frank. I think there's much bigger issues than Frank. We'll get into all of that, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. Sure,
And
sure.
I was someone who advocated heavily for Frank in the summer, so I'm very, very happy to admit that he's not lived up quite to my expectations yet. But there's much bigger issues, as we know, the ownership being the biggest, and then the players as well. But that being said, I don't want him sacked right now because I don't trust the current mob to pick the next manager, right? So,
Sure,
I think the
sure.
most important hire we need to make next is a new sporting director. We need to sack Langer, get a new sporting director first, and give that person the autonomy and the keys to pick the next manager if you're gonna move the manager on. So yeah, I think it's there's lots of moving parts, as there always is with Tottenham, but I think there's bigger fish to fry, I think, for Tottenham to get to where we actually need to be.
I'll ask you to, keep your grubby little mitts off my Johan Langer. He just brought in my boy Conor Gallagher, so I'm very happy with Johan Langer this week. I thought the video was quite telling yesterday when he met Conor Gallagher and Conor said, "Thank you for doing everything so quickly." So I thought that was quite telling. But look, in general, Billy, we are at Spurs. We're always one game away or one day away from absolute drama, toxicity, the end of the world. How does this ever calm down in your mind? Is it just some wins on the pitch that calms it down? Is it transfer windows that calm it down? Is it communication from Vinay to the fact? What calms everything down so we can stop having this drama every 3 to 6 months?
It'd be nice to have one of those three things, because communication, transfers, or wins. At the moment, we're sort of sitting with zero. I think the Conor Gallagher signing was definitely a step in the right direction for the club. And if we had a couple more of those, I think the drama would die down a little bit. I think fans just need to feel like they're being directed and they know what's going. Like the word that you use, plan. There's a plan there. At the moment, It's so chaotic. Everything is so chaotic. I mean, we've got, I've said it loads of times, but we've got the manager getting booed off at games. We've got the players fighting the fans. We've got the fans fighting the players. We've got the captain coming out making statements and things. Like, it's absolute chaos at the moment. So I think you have to do your business on the football pitch. A couple of wins would, calm things down generally, especially because we've got such a massive couple of games coming up. We've got a Champions League game midweek. I know, sometimes in football, I kind of thought we saw it. I thought we might have seen it in that Copenhagen game when Mickey van der Ven scored that wonder goal. I thought that might be a good kickstart for us. Sometimes you just need a moment like that. But maybe a nice win against Dortmund will really sort of restate the season again and think, actually, maybe we can go somewhere with Thomas Frank. So I think he has to do the talking on the football pitch from now on. But obviously, West Ham in particular, like, there's no other option than winning that game. They can't draw it, they can't lose it, because West Ham are so poor and we're so in such bad form. Like, we have to win tomorrow as a minimum.
Yeah, no, look, you make great points. I mean, Conor, I want to come back to you, and obviously you and I talked a lot in the summer about the need for a coach. I feel like every time Frank doesn't win a game, everyone uses the word coach against him. I'm a bit more of the opinion that coaching is a long-term thing rather than hey, you've had 6 months, let's see what it's all about. Is it difficult to judge a manager when he's had, when we've never seen him be able to field his best 11 for a start, when we haven't bought key positions on the pitch we need, ball playing midfielder, left winger, some will say striker, versus playing every 3 days? Some people don't think that matters. Do you think it's a bit harsh, some of the heat he's getting? And is Frank taking a lot of the brunt for many years of a poorly run football club, hence the protest tomorrow?
Yeah, I think all of those points are definitely fair. I think the counter would probably be that I think even with some of those in certain games you'd expect a bit more intent. I think there has been some of his subs have probably been a little bit more baffling than I expected based on what I saw at Brentford. To be honest, I think he didn't quite understand himself the magnitude of the shit show he was walking into either.
Agreed.
I think Brentford is a fantastically well-run club for their size, right? And, talking about, having a plan and having owners with a plan, and Matt Benham and the way that the job he's done at that football club and the relative ambition and the money that he's put in himself and all of that type of stuff, it's like chalk and cheese comparably. Now, obviously, we're much bigger, so you can't compare either. But in terms of relative ambition, it's completely different. And I think Frank underestimated how much of a shambles we are in every single facet of the club, whether that be recruitment, whether that be the medical team, whether that be the academy. You probably heard me yesterday, Savva, about the academy, and I made the point that we are a Big Six club based in London. Should be in theory similar to Chelsea and Arsenal in terms of being able to get kids in and develop them and give them a pathway. And look at the number of Premier League players Chelsea and Arsenal have had from their academy, not necessarily playing for them, but playing for other Premier League clubs as well, compared to us. And it's completely night and day, right?
Yeah, of course.
And that just gives me another sort of indication that that's probably an area we've massively underinvested in as well, right? So I think it's definitely true. I think it's definitely true on Frank. I also think the pressure of being at a Big Six club and that fishbowl that you're in is hard for anyone to take. And I think he has been, and this feeds into the intent point, I think he's so nervous about losing because of the pressure and that media attention you get that you don't get at Brentford. I think he's found that hard to acclimatise to. But that's not to say he couldn't change, flip that round as he starts to get more used to all of these things. But I do agree with the sentiment of your point, which is if you sack Frank, nothing changes until the owners change. Whether that, in my view, I want the ownership to actually change and have new owners that are going to give a complete cultural reset. But if these owners are staying and they are serious, which they haven't really shown today, they need to start putting in place proper footballing structures first before you even get into the talk about the manager, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because Billy, Lubo always, no doubt he'll be in here soon talking about his manifesto. Lubo talks a lot about the micro versus the macro. And, listen, I'm guilty of this. I think we're all guilty of this, is that we always naturally gravitate to what's easiest in life and what's easiest at the clubs. And as I said, I'm guilty of this. Connor, I bet you are. Billy, I'm sure you are. It's the manager. The manager will go because it's the easiest one, right? You give him a payoff, he's gone, the next guy comes through the door. But at some point, Billy, we are going to have to look at the structure of the football club. Now, they're telling us they're doing that. They went massively into it again with Rafi Mawson yesterday, how he helps with the structure and we want to align to be like the bigger clubs. But what do you think will be the moment when we can all turn around and go, yeah, this is different? Do you know what I mean? Like at the moment, we're 6 months out of Levy, right? What will the moment be for you? Will it be big signings? Will it be brand new, huge director of football? What will be the moment that we go, yeah, this ownership is different. Let's park change for Tottenham and protests?
Yeah, I think it's got to be, in answer to your question, is when it's clear that the club have got an identity that they've chosen and they're going to stick with it. So I think what's happened too much over the last few years, if you look at the sort of recent history since Poch left, we've gone from Mourinho to Conte to Nuno to Mason as an interim to Ange, then to Frank, and there's nothing really which links any of those managers whatsoever. There's no through line philosophy. There's completely different styles of football, and what you're left with, you hire a manager like Ange, you give him 400 million over 2 years, then you get someone like Frank, and suddenly Frank doesn't want the players that Ange wanted because they play a completely different style. So you're left with a manager that only trusts a few first team players, and it's a complete mess, a complete and utter mess. So they have to get the identity right, and I would hope, and every fan would hope, that that's attacking football and attacking football philosophy. The club keep talking about that, and then it drips down from the top, and then from the top, it's got to come with a strong director of football football. I'm not sure if Langer is going to be that person. He hasn't really shown any evidence of it yet. He's had some disappointing transfer windows, found a couple of gems here and there for sure, but I'm not sure if he's a strong enough personality to take over, turn us back into where we want to be. It might need to be a new hire. Obviously, in the dream world, you'd go and get someone like Campos or something, but that is literally a fantasy dream. That's a fantasy dream world that I don't think would ever be a reality. And in answer to your question about how will we know this is new, I just think smart football decisions, because we've made so many baffling football decisions over the years, from the director of football, the signings. If you look at the actual spend, as I know there's been a big topic this week, we have spent a lot of money, but we spent a lot of money on dross and players that don't come in and improve. And I think we'll know that this is a new ownership when smart footballing decisions are being made consistently, because that is just something we've never really seen under Enoch.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, Billy, that doesn't happen over 6 months. And no, I think I tell you what's interesting is one of the comments I just saw there was like, praising Connor, but putting me down, which is, I'm used to it. I'm used to that. But it was saying, Connor is big enough to admit he is underwhelmed. Well done, Connor. You should be very proud of yourself. Underwhelmed by Frank. Why can't Savva do the same? And I think the reason why I'm not there, Billy, is because I was one of the people in the summer who said, I think that this is going to be years. I think there's a lot of shit to undo. And I keep using the analogy, and sorry for anyone out there who's a bit bigger. If you destroy your body for 10 years with shit food, alcohol, drugs, no exercise, and then you say, right, January the 1st, I'm changing. Don't expect by June that your body is a well-oiled machine and everything's great. It takes a long time to change those habits. And I think that's why people get frustrated with me, Billy. They want me to go, oh, Frank hasn't worked. But I don't think I can judge a manager after 6 months picking up the shit show. And I've said it before, mate, I'll say that about the next guy picking this up. If Frank was to go this weekend, I'll have the same energy for the next guy. That you're coming into a mess. You're coming into no structure. We're almost hoping we're hoping everyone does what Poch did, right, and make miracles. So,
and I think it's really clear if you look through Enoch that Poch was an exception to the rule rather than the rule, wasn't he? Like, I think we all want to replicate that, but it's just under these. I think that was so many like random factors at once, rather than being. It wasn't really smart planning or anything. It just all came together at once, didn't it? And it's been. I think you're exactly right that if you look at how many managers we've had over the last 20 years, like it comes to a point where you have to stop blaming the manager at some point. You have to look above that, because Frank is just the next fall guy. That's the sort of the one who's taking the blame. And we know that the classic Daniel Levy tactic was to sack the manager and get someone else and take the heat off him. And at the moment, to be fair to the owners, they have stuck by him. So. Yeah, you're right.
I think these owners have got that up their sleeve, Billy. I feel like the owners have got this up their sleeve massively, because if all reports are that Pochettino is coming back in the summer, let's be fair, what that will do is park for one moment how happy most people will be with Poch. Again, what it does for me is it buys them a couple of years from people deflecting away from the board. So if we look at this, when they sacked Poch the first time, and we can argue all day long about whether it was the right time and whether he'd run his course, but they sacked a popular figure. And how did they make up to it to the fans? Oh, hang on, he's one of the greatest managers of our generation. So the noise goes away, right? Nuno, massive noise. I'll tell you what, rabbit out the hat. Here's Antonio Conte, serial winner. I think that it'll be exactly the same this summer.
Yeah, me too.
They just do enough, don't they? They just make that one decision every now and then, which makes us all go, yeah, it's fine. The club's not run badly. It was the manager. And I think I just hit my brick wall with that, Billy, personally, as a fan. I hit my brick wall.
You can explain that. You can. Sorry, Bill, go on.
Oh, yeah, I always used to think this is Levy's last roll of the dice. And I thought Mourinho was Levy's last roll of the dice. And then actually, oh no, Conte's Levy's last roll of the dice. And then Ange's Levy's last roll of the dice because he might win something. But this guy has got they have infinite lives, these guys, don't they?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they do.
I was just going to say, Sav, you can extend that to players as well, though, because
sure.
I remember when we were talking about protesting and we had, unfortunately, the unsuccessful protest in terms of numbers in the summer. And one of the ones I attended, we signed Xavi Simons on the week the protest was happening, and that it's almost that saved them, and we've even seen it, Bill, a little bit in some of the shows we've done in the chat, about because now Gallagher's been signed, Billy's been asked the question, "Oh, are you going to cancel the protest?" And it's like, well, one swallow doesn't make a summer, right? This is us looking at sort of 24, 25 years of pretty terrible decisions on the whole, and a
Sure.
complete shambles off the pitch that we want to change. And that, you're right on Poch as well when you say he's the exception rather than the rule. I'd go one further and say that he did the job he did completely in spite of Enoch, not because of them.
Sure.
And actually, in some ways, it's the least forgivable what they did to him, because I think I've messaged you about this, Sav, when I was looking back when we played Arsenal in 16-17, which was when we finished second. That was our best league season. On the bench, your attacking options were Josh Onoma, Nkudu, and Jansen. And then people go, "Oh, why wasn't Poch able to get over the line or compete on all fronts?" And it's like, for fuck's sake. I mean, he had a good start in 11, but this is what he was given in terms of
Yeah.
backing.
Yeah,
And
especially
if we
kind of
just
when you look
spent
at
a little bit, then we would have definitely won significant trophies in my mind.
Well, especially when I looked at the other night when I was watching Arsenal v Chelsea, and you look at Arsenal are bringing like for like into the team on match days, right?
Scary,
And
their bench, scary.
I saw Billy say yesterday on the Spurs 5 that like obviously it's horrible to constantly reference what's going on over there at them lot, but it's really worrying that Timber doesn't play. Ben White comes in as a blinder, and you're like, yeah, when we don't have a player play, we've got a 19-year-old kid that steps in, and we all go on, be amazing. And but also, Connor, and I know I get in trouble for talking about the fans, I think this extends to the fans as well. Like, we all ask for Deadwood to go, we all ask for managers to be ruthless, we all ask for Spurs to move players on, but look at what happened just 15 days ago. Brennan Johnson sold, right? And I'm like, yeah, that damn right. Absolutely. Not good enough. Thank you for the touching the ball in the Europa final. I don't know if he did. I don't think he did, but hey, it is what it is, right? But I'm thinking, yeah, that's right. Because the bigger clubs, they don't have Brennan Johnsons. They just don't. Half our fan base went into meltdown, Connor. So it's kind of like we excuse managers, we excuse the owners, we excuse players, we excuse directors of football. It just feels like we're never really, we don't want to be ruthless. We say we do, but when it comes to it,
I mean,
do we want to be ruthless?
No, I get that. I mean, look, I'm with the Johnson one. I'm with you. I mean, it reminded me a little bit of an obituary at a funeral for someone who's a knob, and then they suddenly, read out as if they've, been an amazing person. It was like like complete revisionism on what everyone had been talking about with Johnson for the last couple of years, and I mean, he needed to go. Unfortunately, the problem is we're now 16 days into a window, and he went 2 weeks ago, as you say, and we haven't replaced him, and we're so light in those attacking positions. But
we hang on to that.
It was still the right decision for him to go.
We hang on to the fact we've not replaced him, rather than the fact that, he did need to go. And I think there's two very separate subjects there, because what I saw the day that Brennan Johnson was gone was, I'm sitting there going, surely no one's paying £35 million for this bloke, right? And then when Palace did, I was like, oh, that's a well done. Whoever's done that sale at Spurs, well done. Then all of a sudden I'm just saying, can't believe it. Brennan Johnson's good. He scores goals. He just... And I'm thinking, but most of these are the same fans that don't like the owners and the manager, but are praising mediocrity in wanting to keep Brennan Johnson. So Spurs, again, we've done 50% of the job right in finding a home for Brennan Johnson, but it's the other 50%, guys, isn't it, where fans are really frustrated, because we already didn't replace Son, right? Now Johnson's gone and Kudus has got injured, and we're all sitting here 16 days into a window going, surely a winger has to, I don't care at this stage if it's right or left, right? Surely one of the winger positions has to be dealt with, and quickly, right? Surely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I suppose that point about how we're not replacing players is almost, I think, before, probably under Poch, you would say we were still reactive rather than proactive, and never bought on top of what we already had. And we've almost now taken that one step further, that we're not even replacing players either. So not only are we not like building and developing on what we do have. We're then not replacing players when they go. And Son is obviously the prime example. And the fact that they, you know, there's an argument to say they should have signed a Son replacement the season before he went, so that you had a proper succession plan in place, right? That's what a proper football club would do.
Right.
And we still haven't replaced him now. And we're now, 6 months on from that. And then, obviously the Johnson one is the same. So, yeah, I think it's
and even Kane, you can kind of go back
this
to
is
as
where
well.
we need
Really,
to plan.
Kane, you can go back to as well. That's two of the best Premier League players ever that we've lost, and we're still struggling to ever get near that level again. Really, I know that you can't go out and replace Harry Kane exactly, but definitely do a better job than we've done.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing on that front, Billy, is, and I'm going to move on to the signings in a minute and then the protests, but I think the interesting thing on that front is we asked for years, didn't we? Whether we all asked out loud or whether it was something in our own souls, we all asked, what will Spurs do when Son and Kane aren't here? I think we all asked that question.
This is the result.
Unfortunately, this is we saw half of it when Kane went. And now we're seeing all of it. Now we're seeing, is this what we've got going forward? Do you know what I mean? We'll talk about that in a minute, but just it blows my mind that still to this day, like we are 16 days into a transfer window. They had all of September, October, November, and December. They would have known Brennan Johnson was going for a long time, right? They knew Son was going for a long time. And you're thinking, surely there was something ready to go. I don't care if it's this Solis guy or whether it's Akliouche or Lookman, whoever it is, surely somebody was ready to go that's better than Tell, better than Odegaard, better than Yang and Moore. And surely, right? That's my frustration.
Yeah, and particularly when, we were told that this is a new era of Tottenham and an ambitious era, it's just... It's unforgivable, really, that they've gone into January without. And usually at this time there are some meaningful links or something like that, or some bids rejected. We've had absolute radio silence, and I know sometimes Langer, that's the way that Langer works, but it doesn't look like anything's even close to being done. And we had 2 Premier League games already in January. We've dropped points in both of them. We've gone out the FA Cup in January, so it's having a really negative impact on the team. And in the Premier League game before January, Takai and Johnson were both on the bench, and they were sold very quickly in January. So our squad literally got weaker in January. On a practical level, it got weaker because we had 2 players on the bench that were gone and weren't replaced. So and we've dropped points in the Premier League as a result of that. And in the Premier League, if we're sat a couple of points away from the Europe or whatever, we could look back on this January and think, if we'd have got someone over the line quickly, would that have made a big difference? We might still be in the FA Cup as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the frustrating thing. Look, let's move on to the transfers then. There's a lot of talk around Conor Gallagher. I mean, Conor, you know my opinions on Conor Gallagher. I've wanted him at Spurs since he was 18. Saw him on loan at Charlton and thought, yeah, you are a really good player. I think everything about the move is great. Again, it's been met with a real kind of divisive nature within our fan base. What do you make of the signing? And in your opinion, is this the sort of player we need to be leaning towards? If we forget position at the moment, is this the sort of player we need to be leaning towards in terms of his professionalism, his versatility, his energy, the vision that he brings, the emotion that he'll bring to the rest of the teammates? Is this a good signing in that respect?
For me, definitely. I think you just hit the nail on the head in terms of a lot of the intangibles that people don't see, just in terms of setting a good example, being a proper professional, being a leader, availability as well, touch wood. I know he hasn't missed a game for injury. We'll see how strong the Tottenham curse is. So in terms of all of that type of stuff, yeah, I think look, I'm not speaking for every fan who's criticised it, but I think some of the criticism almost comes from a bit of a superiority complex from certain fans about, look how clever I am about football, and I know that we need a ball playing midfielder, and I know exactly how to. And for me, look, we all know, like all of us that are praising the transfer as well, know that we need a ball player midfielder.
Sure.
But that's not to say that Conor Gallagher is not a good option to have in our midfield options as well. You know, he's very, very versatile, can play in three. You've got to also think about who you can get when you're sitting 14th in the league and you're
Sure.
and it's the January window, and you know the whole homegrown thing as well. I mean, speak to Chelsea fans about Gallagher, and they were gutted when he went. You know, and
As
so
was
yeah, I
Poch.
think it's a good signing. Yeah, and we definitely need a ball playing midfielder for sure. No one's, but he's better than what we've got, isn't he? And he was available, and he goes straight into the first team and makes a difference. So for me, that's a good signing, and it was cheap as well. To be honest, you know, it
Really
was
cheap. Well,
you know
it was
35 million.
Johnson out, Gallagher in for
Exactly.
you know, couple of quid change. But I mean, Billy, can I obviously I don't know your opinion on this. Are you surprised by, again, it's not all the fan base, nothing's ever 100%. Are you surprised by a lot of the negativity that's surrounding Conor Gallagher? And sorry, my door's gone.
A little bit, yeah, because I think obviously the type of signing that it is the kind of signings that we've been pushing for as a fan base for a long time, you know, and players that are on a decent wage, players that cost a decent transfer fee, Premier League experience, players that aren't teenagers, players that are coming into it straight away. So I'm a little bit surprised towards the negativity. I guess a lot of the negativity is to do with the profile issue of where he plays, and the fact we've got quite a few players that play in that same position. But I would suggest that he's by far the best one of them already. So I think he immediately comes in and becomes our best midfielder in that number 8 role that we have quite a few bodies in there. So I think it's the sort of thing, you know, Spurs fans, and I'm one of them as well. I'm always moaning about the board and moaning about this and this, but you have to also acknowledge the fact that when they do make a sign like this isn't a typical Tottenham signing of the past that we've seen in the last few years. You know, tend to spend a lot of this kind of money on teenagers or people with potential, whereas Conor Gallagher is a ready-made player that can come in and can play on Saturday, and you probably think that he's been at Tottenham for 10 years. You know what I mean? I can just already imagine the impact that he's going to have on Saturday. So, you know, and if you do kind of look at the 2 transfer windows that we've had now, you might, if you're optimistic, see a shift there, because, you know, we've got people like Kudus coming in, Palhinha coming in, Gallagher coming in. These are ready-made players that are on over 100 grand a week, which hopefully signals a shift in the transfer policy. And if you look at the 2 windows next to each other, they are sort of trending differently to the windows that we've had in the past.
Yeah.
And hopefully they figure it out.
Especially the caliber we're looking at, right?
Yeah, the caliber,
Yeah,
and the age, and the profile, and the sort of the wages in particular. And hopefully they've realised that, you know, you can't just go forever taking punts on teenagers. Sometimes it works and you get a Dele Alli, but, you know, most of the time you get someone that you have to, you know, wait for years to actually foresee in the first team. So hopefully it is the continued sign of, you know, we've all been asking for these kind of signings. So I'm not going to complain that we get them. Yeah,
look, I'm going to come back to this in 1 second. Guys and girls, there's 600 of you in here at the moment and growing. I'm going to put the link in right now. If we can we're going to try and get these guys to 1,000 before the end of the day. It's a big target. There is the link. Look, there's 600 of you. If even 50% of you just go over there, smash that button. These guys have started a brand new channel called At the Whistle Blows. You know what you're going to get from these 2. They're both cool, calm customers. They're not irrational and emotional like me. You're going to get cool, calm conversation. You got the finance side, you got the protest side, and all the football stuff in the middle sandwiched in as well. So please get over there right now. Let's do that. And I'll tell you what I'll do. Here you go. I'll make this worth your while. If we get these guys to 1,000 before this show finishes, I'll give away a Spurs shirt from the club shop. How's that? There you go. The Spurs shirt from the club shop. At the moment,
thank you very much.
We are sitting on, come on guys, 577. Come on, let's get 3-4. Come on, let's right now. Please do that. Whilst we're waiting to see how many people do that, have a look at the bar scrolling across the bottom right now, okay? I haven't pressed the button yet, but this is what makes me laugh. When I'm seeing everybody lose their minds over signings like Conor Gallagher, I just want to remind everyone, this is the 13 central midfielders Tottenham Hotspur have played since Moussa Dembele left this football club, right? Now, let this sink in. When we're all going, we're better than Conor Gallagher, have a look at this list of people and tell me that this guy isn't a brilliant signing for Spurs, right? There we go. Skip, Sissoko, Winks, Højbjerg, Lo Celso, Ndombele, Bentancur, Sarr, Gray, Gedson, Bergvall, Basuma, Bentancur. Now I'm going to leave that up for people, right? Now, some of those are young and might come good. I'm not going to say will come good because you never know. Some of those came with good reputations like Basuma and didn't work out. But Connor, when you look at that as a collective, they're the 13 players since Dembele went, and Wanyama kind of went in and around the same time, right? Look at the state of that as a collective, and we've got fans moaning about Conor Gallagher joining this football club, an ex-Chelsea captain who our Lord and Saviour Pochettino absolutely loved and fell out with Chelsea because of. Diego Simeone wanted him and said he's the ultimate professional, is what Diego Simeone said about him. And our fans are complaining. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, that is an absolute shambles of a list, isn't it? I mean, it is, you know. And look, I remember when we were linked with Ndombele. I mean, I have to say at the time I was super excited about that signing, and obviously that worked out the way it did. Similarly with Basuma, I was really happy when we signed Basuma because of, you know, what I'd seen of him at Brighton, and that obviously hasn't worked out either. But look, I think it's that is a shambles of a list. I think if anything sums up what's happened in terms of our recruitment and the way that the club has gone over the last 6 years or so, this list does that, doesn't it? You know, and you know, you look at some of the midfielders some of our rivals have signed in the same time. I mean, even in the last 3 years, right? So in the last 3 years, the only established midfield signings we made before Gallagher was Bergvall and Gray, 2 kids, right, who aren't ready. And then you've got, you know, the likes of Tonali, Declan Rice, Caicedo, Zubamendi, Gravenberch, all being signed in that same time. You can see why we are where we are, and you know, with our midfield struggles in games versus anyone who's got a decent midfield. Thankfully, I think for tomorrow, West Ham's midfield is also terrible. So I'm expecting us to win that game, and I think Gallagher will have an impact straight away, as we're saying.
Yeah. Now, Billy, just before I get your take on this, by the way, there's people putting names in the chat. This is central midfielders. I'm not talking about Kulusevski. I'm not talking about Maddison, Eriks. I'm talking about out and out central midfielders. A few people pointed out to me this morning when I showed them that list that Eric Dyer's played a few times in midfield since then as well, but I didn't really see him as a midfielder towards the end, a centre back. Alfie Devine might have played like 2 games for Tottenham. I'm not going to count him, but Billy, it's you know, I look at that list, then I look at all of the wingers we've signed since Sun that include Bergwijn and G and Kudu, Tell, Odeber, Yang, this player. It's some shocking recruitment in the last 6 years, isn't there, Billy? Shocking.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you have to go back to what you were saying, you know, a couple of minutes ago, and you have to look above the managers that have been under Ine. If this is what they've been served up, like the recruitment has been absolutely terrible. I know Paratici has had some, you know, hit signings: Kulusevski, Bentancur, Romero, Langer has got some, you know, Bergvall looks like a hit signing. Definitely really good player for the future, anyway. But the recruitment overall has been absolutely shocking over the last, you know, 10, 15 years. It's been shocking. I think there's probably you could probably, I mean, Basuma there as a really talented player, but you probably couldn't put it down as a successful signing because he's been so in and out the team and had massive discipline issues. Ndombele, a huge flop. There's probably only really Bentancur there that you could probably say has been a successful signing, and Bergvall for the future as well. And hopefully Gray will be added to that as well. And, you know, Sarr is, you know, these are young players rather than ready-made players. And that January we signed Kulusevski and Bentancur, we actually did do a decent January for once.
Yeah.
That put us up in the league. That was what helped us get over the line and finish 4th in that league. So, you know, it just shows the importance of good recruitment. A good sign like Bentancur this January. Hopefully Conor Gallagher can be like that. And then if we can go and get a Kulusevski as well. And, you know, I think in the time of January we were 14th. On the January transfer window, and then obviously we ended up finishing 4th on the, you know, and towards the latter end of the season. So, you know, a couple of good signings can really make a big difference.
Do you know what I find interesting about this, guys, as well, is for me, it's not always that we talk about hindsight. It's not that some of them we weren't looking forward to. Like when Basuma came, I thought, yeah, this could be really good. When you look at that list, how many seasons did they all have other than Gedson, right? How many seasons did all of those footballers having a Spurs shirt or being employed by Spurs. And it's like with Ndombele, cool, we got him. We were excited. It didn't work out. Chelsea, City, Liverpool, they moved them on. Right? They moved them on. What do? It'll be better under the next manager and the next manager and the next manager. Next thing you know, 4 or 5 years down the line, I mean, you know, Ndombele and Lo Celso had 5 years being employed by this football club. Ryan Sessegnon, I know he's not a centre mid. Ryan Sessegnon was at this football club for 5 years. Skip, Winks, a bit like Bentancur now has been here for 4.5 years, and it doesn't matter that we're seeing him fade and fade. 4.5 years, new contract. We just don't seem to move them on, Connor, and the Chelsea's do. But, you know, that's the worry.
Spot on. We're not ruthless enough, and the problem, you know, and at least we have been with Johnson. To be fair, that is, you know, that back to that earlier discussion with Johnson, they have moved him on pretty quick. To be fair, and you've got money, but it's like this whole, you know, when you keep sending players out on loan because you're struggling to sell them, sometimes you just got to write it off as a mistake and appreciate you're going to lose money on signings, and that happens, right? Arsenal did that with Pepe. You know, eventually they just said, look, obviously this is just a waste. And the problem is as well, what you end up getting, some of our fans use that as a reason why we can't do it again. So like I've seen Ndombele used as an example so often whenever I talk about the fact that we need to target a certain profile of player in terms of wages and transfer fee. And then everyone always goes, oh, what about Ndombele? Other big clubs don't do this. They have recruitment misses and they realise, you know, that happens, and then you just have to move on and you sign the next one. You know,
they go again.
Arsenal signing Pepe didn't end up meaning that, you know, they wouldn't then sign Declan Rice for a lot of money, right? And right, Chelsea have had several of these. So this is and look, I just saw a comment saying, why am I obsessed with Arsenal? It's not that I'm obsessed with Arsenal. I despise Arsenal. But what I can appreciate is that they are run as a proper football club, and they're the most similar to us in terms of size, financially and stature, and they're based in, you know, expensive ticket prices. So it's just the best reference point for how badly we've run over the last 6 years and how well they've run. So that's the reason for bringing them up.
Yeah, it's such a shame. It's such a shame, and this is why I've finally kind of hit a brick wall with it. That when I feel like the fan expectation doesn't align with the level of player we've bought in majority. I feel like we can all have great expectations and we all say up your standards. And yeah, I want Spurs to be finishing top 4 and Champions League every year, but you can't keep buying reels and reels and reels of bad players in every position and think that you're going to be competing with the Arsenal, Cities, Liverpools, Chelseas. And it's not to say that these teams don't make bad signings, but more often than not, City don't get it wrong, right? There's a couple you could go like Phillips didn't work out. This didn't work out, but they move them on quickly. The next one comes in, they go again, right? We seem to have this sentimental feeling that if a player doesn't work, we'll give him 2 years. It will be the same. Not all of these, but like with Graham Bergvall, 2 young central midfielders, I can't see both are going to work. Odegaard and Tell, both left-sided play. I don't think both are going to work, but we'll keep them for years and years and years and years until we get to 5 years down the line with 1 or 2 of them and go, oh, it's not worked. Where do we sell them to? We've got Deadwood. And it just feels like it's a constant roller coaster. But with that in mind, Billy, let me move it on to, because I know you've only got 10 minutes. So I want to move it on to the protest tomorrow. Now, you've obviously been behind Change for Tottenham. I think everyone knows who you are now within the community and knows that you are behind the protests with your partners. Talk to us about tomorrow. Sorry, I know you've been talking about this probably all week and all month or whatever, but what's the aim of tomorrow? What's the one message that you and your partners want to be spread across that protest so that everyone's not chanting different things and that there is one goal in mind that you want to achieve?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. And the aim of this protest is to just put some pressure on the board to deliver the promises which they made in the summer. So they promised to be an ambitious football club. They promised to put the football team first. And they promised to create a football team that would compete on all 4 fronts. At the moment, we're a football team that can't even compete on one. So we have a lot of work to do, and that starts in January. So the aim of this protest is for like-minded fans to get together and voice their frustrations with how the board are doing so far. And a lot of people have asked, is this a Thomas Frank protest? And it's not a Thomas Frank protest. Myself, I'm not particularly fond of Thomas Frank, but as we've already discussed on the show at length, the problems go way beyond that. So this protest is designed at challenging the board. And in the summer, we were told that this would be a huge, transformational period for us with the new executives, the new outlook, the new focus on the football team, and we haven't seen it so far. So this is to put pressure on the board for that. And I would suggest that if the board, they rejected 3 high-profile bids in the summer at least that we know of because of the whole reporting works, and they said we don't want to sell, we want to have a go. Well, we want to see them have a go then, because right now we're not seeing it.
Yeah, Connor, I think that's really important, right? Like when we look at the protest tomorrow, it's going to mean, there's going to be different meanings for different people, but the end goal, I think, is kind of the same, that we all want the club to kick on and act like a big club. We want the promise fulfilled of, hang on, this is why we moved to the new stadium. Otherwise, just stay, if you want to buy young kids and you want to be, neutral with your, if you want to be net equal, stay at White Hart Lane. So where are you at with these protests, Connor? Why do you go and do you see that they make a difference? So I'm someone that's doubted them. That I'm not hiding that.
Yeah.
Convince me. Why do they make a difference? And I will be there tomorrow, by the way. But convince me, why do they make a difference?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've always been very, very supportive of the protest. I was one of about 12 there against Burnley in the summer when perhaps the timing wasn't quite right. And look, I don't think there isn't anyone who is naive enough to think that this is going to force the Lewis family to sell the club on Sunday, because clearly they've got a number in mind for when they want to realise that. And it's a £3.5–4 billion business that's not going to be sold because 1,000 people or whatever have turned up to a protest. But I think what Billy says is right. What it does do is, one, makes you feel like your voice is heard. We can continue to just accept this, or you can do what is within your gift to do. What I've always compared it to is when people say it's not worth voting and then spend and don't go out to vote and then spend the next 4 or 5 years complaining about the government and every sort of decision that impacts them. And it's sort of like, well, at least you feel like you've done what you can do. And look, I think Billy's right. It's about the ownership. It's about the promises they've made. The way I always summarize that is, we're not the ones who set the highest ticket prices in Europe. We're not the ones that tried to take the club into the European Super League. We're not the ones who, constantly talk about us being part of the Big Six. That's all things that the club have done. And so they need to match those expectations that they're setting themselves. And again, as Billy said, the ownership themselves have come out. We want to win the league and the Champions League, right? They said that in the summer. They said they want to compete on all 4 fronts. Back that up and show us that you've got a plan and a strategy to make that happen. And so, look, I hope we get good numbers. I get that people might think it's futile, but at least I think you can feel like you're doing everything that you can do, and you're putting a bit of pressure on. And for me, the big thing is media attention.
Yeah.
If you think about the big one against Man United, Daniel Levy was all over the news. TalkSport. Bill's been on TalkSport this morning as well about this protest, but in all of the key newspapers. And that's not good for business either, right? And suddenly corporate sponsors as well, they start to get a bit tetchy perhaps, because they go, but do we really want to be involved with this? It's sort of, you've got people protesting, people unhappy, it's toxic. And then maybe that will make them, act a little bit differently or communicate more. We've definitely seen a ramp up in some of the communication in response to things like the protests. So, and one final point, just before I let Lubo come in, because I know he was also one of the 12 with me against Burnley. I see some fans go, "Oh, it's no good for the team when you're protesting outside and you're not backing the team." Billy is very clear on this, and Change for Tottenham are very clear on this. This is about supporting the team and not the regime. The atmosphere will be great. If anything, I would say it will probably improve the atmosphere going into the stadium, because we'll all be chanting outside, going in with that feeling. And also, these are the same fans, by the way. Half of them are booing the manager and the players, and then tell us that the protests are the issue but are very happy to boo in the stadium, something I've never done personally. So, I'm very, very clear that it's the ownership we need to be complaining at.
There's a couple of questions from the chat that I think are quite interesting. And good morning, Lubo. I think what's interesting for me is I think we're kind of seeing changes from ENIC in terms of what they're trying to implement as the structure with the suits. We'll call it that, and I think what's frustrating for fans is it's catch-22, isn't it? That we see, okay, we want to do this with Rafi Mawson. We want to do this with Lang. We want to do this with Heitinger coming. We want to do this with set-piece coaches. Is the frustration, though, that for everything we're seeing from ENIC there, as football fans, the baseline of what we actually see is down there on the pitch? And is that the frustration, that they can talk a great game, they can put suits in front of cameras, they can tell us about strategies and plans, but when we're in transfer windows like we are right now, it's like, okay, well, where's the proactive nature of the signings, Billy? Because
that's exactly
if you look at it, listen, as much as I love the Conor Gallagher signing, and Lubo will tell you I love Conor Gallagher, it still feels very much that it was off the basis of Rodrigo Bentancur getting a 3-4 month injury. As much as I loved the signing of Kudus, for example, it was off the basis of, well, some went. It feels like we never actually go, right, bang, there we go. Look, wow. Is that fair to say?
I think that's exactly one of the problems, and I think we were always, at the beginning of the season, we changed to Tottenham. We always had in our minds to, to give them the January window as a sort of grace period, just to see, what happens. But I think it's very quickly transpired that, not enough is being done, and we had a lot of messages saying, when are the protests going to start again? So we've reacted to that, and I think, not stupid enough to think that all of these huge changes at board level are going to make an immediate impact after 3 months or whatever. Obviously, that kind of change takes a lot of time to the fruits of that will take a lot of time to come out. But at the same time, we're in a crisis right now as a football club. We're 14th in the league. We're sort of sleepwalking towards a bottom half finish again, which again, 2 seasons in a row would be unthinkable for Tottenham. We're out all of the cup competitions. We're out this and that. And we're in a crisis. Like I said at the beginning, our captain's coming out and speaking against the board. There's no connectivity between the fans. And the January transfer window was a chance to react to the crisis. And so far, they've reacted to an injury, sure. But they haven't reacted to the fact that we are, sleeping again. When we're sort of sleepwalking again to another bottom half finish, which for a club like Tottenham over the last 25 years or whatever, we've been a club that's always been around the top 6 as a minimum. It'd be unforgivable if we finish in the bottom half again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Lubo and Billy, I know you need to go in a minute, so
I'll stick around for a bit. I'll stick around for a bit, and then I'll. Cool.
Okay, cool. I mean, Lubo, welcome to the show. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Because it's kind of like, does the tail wag the dog or does the dog wag the tail, right? You've got to implement the things you need at the top for things to happen at the bottom, but it always feels like we're implementing at the top, doesn't it? It always feels like there's a change, but never really a change in the window. And I think Billy's right. This window was a real chance, wasn't it? There's still 2 weeks to go in it. There's still 15 days to go in it. But
17 days, yeah.
17 days, whenever the transfer window ends. I don't know. They change every year. They change the date.
Yeah, 2nd of Feb this time.
2nd of Feb. Fair enough, right? But again, I think what a lot of fans were expecting was we knew we were like going forward. We know we're like going forward. Like this weekend, you've literally got Tell and Odegaard as the only 2 wide options in the entire football club. Like that's it. So if they don't work, you're now shoehorning Simmons out there or Gallagher out there or Bergvall out there. But they've not acted, Lubo. Why? And I fail to believe that in a whole European market and world market that there aren't wingers and forwards that improve Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
If it's to do, good morning, everybody. If it's to do with, if we're talking about this transfer window, firstly, I want to see what happens up to the 2nd of Feb. I do agree with the protest tomorrow. I do think they need to have that boot up the backside constantly to make sure that they don't take their foot off the pedal. I think the reactive method that they used with not so much with Kudus, but Simmons and Mwani in the last transfer window. Put that to one side. Transfer window ended at the end of August. Levy went September the 3rd or 4th. So for me, this is Enix Mark II, their first transfer window. So far, Gallagher for me is good. Bentancur did need replacing, albeit through an injury, but it doesn't matter. The fact that we've got Gallagher in is a major upgrade on Bentancur for me personally. So that's a plus. Sousa, no idea. I know he's just waiting for work permit now, and then he'll be integrated in with the first team squad. And let's just see who else comes in the next 2 weeks. Listen, I'm Enix out on the macro level. On the micro level, let's see what Lang and Paratici have cooked up together over the last 4 months. But
do you see my point though, Lubo? That isn't the frustration that we're 16 days into this market?
Yeah,
right. They knew all of the last summer that they needed a left winger, for example.
Well,
so
maybe yes, maybe no.
Hang on. They knew all of last summer they needed.
No.
Hang on, can I
we don't know when
Lubo,
Sonny told them, do we?
Hang on, Lubo. Let me finish, Lubo. Right. They knew all of last summer they needed a left winger, whether or not it was because Son was going then or next year. You've got to, as Connor said earlier in the show, you've got to be looking at replacing, right? You've got to be looking at succession. So they've had all of the summer. You've then had September, October, November, December to cement that plan. So you're now talking about 6-7 months here. You're thinking, right, the January window opens. Surely they've got left winger targets. Surely they've got left winger targets that they're going, right, where are those bids going in? And it might happen, and we hope it happens in the next 2 weeks. But right now, has anyone seen a concrete link with a single left winger in world football?
No, listen. So I know Frank said he liked Savio. He's injured for several weeks. So that probably put the kibosh on that. As for the rest, we don't know how many players agents have been approached. We like to talk. Is he interested? No. We don't know how many rejections there have been on that front either. And Frank has said, I'm not going to buy anybody unless it's the right buy going forward. Now he had the opportunity in the summer to buy Lookman right at the death. We had the opportunity. He said no. He only wanted him on a loan.
I don't believe this in any way, shape, or form. I'm sorry.
Well, it was reported quite openly, wasn't it? And Frank
no,
said
it wasn't. No, Lubo, it wasn't reported. What was reported is Spurs went in for a loan for Lookman. It wasn't reported that Thomas Frank said no to buying him. I feel that bit's being over embellished a little bit there. But the point is, Lubo, even if it is Savio that Thomas Frank wants, football clubs in this day and age can't have one target.
You just got to move on.
You've got to move on. Now you knew in the summer that it's a tough deal to get done, Savio, for whatever reason, right? Forget at the moment if any of us rate him. Forget us. If that's the guy you want, sure. But you've got to have option 2, option 3, option 4, option 5 that you're speaking to, right? And there's loads of left wingers in the world. But there seems to, every time we have this conversation, there seems to be an excuse as to why Tottenham Hotspur can't buy a
this
left
is
winger.
what Sav, this and actually more generally, right? I mean, I'm reading some of the comments about, we need to give them. How patient have Tottenham Hotspur fans been with this ownership? It's 24, 25 years into its run, right? I appreciate that Levy's now gone and this is Enix 2.0 or whatever, but we've been sold these types of excuses window after window after window. We were told, once PSR comes in, we're really going to go for it. Once the new stadium comes in and we get the concerts, we're really going to go for it. Once the Lewis kids get ownership, we're really going to go for it. There's nothing that demonstrates that is happening yet. As you say, we all will appreciate, none of us are naive, right? We know that it takes time to make business changes. We know the January window is more difficult. Okay, they're mitigating circumstances. But you've still gone into a January window where we're on the 16th and we've signed one player when the squad is in absolute shambles and we're sitting 14th in the league. In the summer, yes, the profile of player we targeted was a little bit better, but that was just off the back of finishing 17th, by the way, and getting Champions League money as well. And we still didn't spend as much as some other clubs in the summer. We bought two
There's
players
always
in
an
on loan.
excuse, Connor, though, isn't there?
What other Big Six
there's
club brings
always
in
an
players
excuse.
on loan? None. You know, so we can continue to make these excuses if we want, but I think the point of protesting during a window is to say, this is not good enough. We're not happy with it. We need to demand more. Whether that works or not, who knows? But at least you can feel as an individual you've done everything that you can, or you can just continue to accept that this is the way that things go and will just continue to decline. That's the choice you've got, I think.
I think looking at it on a day-to-day, on a micro level, then yes. And I think this conversation is on a micro level. Looking at it on a macro level, I think they are doing it. They are doing it slightly differently. Johnson was moved on. The offer came in. They moved quickly. He's sold. Players were moved on loan-wise, and they moved quickly to get the Brazilian kid and Gallagher. So, you know, at the end of the day, they offered Semenyo a king's ransom to come and join. He turned us down, but at least the intent was there. They, you know, we're not there yet, but they had a go and they offered big money. So, you know, if we're gonna look at a situation, then got to highlight all the positions, and I'll make it. You know, I'll withhold my own opinion on the transfer window, obviously, until the 3rd of Feb. Let's see what they come back with. You know, they are.
Sure, but this is now a window and a half where we haven't managed to get a left winger. Like we're I don't know any other club that struggles like this. The problem is, Lubo, listen, as a football fan, I can sit here and go, well done for trying for Semenyo, but we knew Semenyo's not joining Tottenham Hotspur. So for me, it's a pointless, that's a vanity statement for me. We tried. Yeah, but you know you're not getting him above Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal. You know you're not getting him. So my question is, who in the background has gone, right, we want Semenyo. The probability of getting him is probably about 2%. So, right, what have we got behind the scenes in case that doesn't
2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. And right now, I just fail to believe that even if you look at someone like Solis of Bruges, I'm just using just examples, by the way, guys. Just that's all I'm doing, just some examples. Even if you look at Solis, you look at Fofana, right? You look at Lookman, you look at, you know, there's players all over Europe. If you go to all of these different leagues around the world, there's players everywhere. And there's always an excuse. Oh, well, we only want Savio. Yeah, but no one else acts like that. No one else acts like that, right? It's just Tottenham Hotspur. And for me, we had all summer and the last 4 months to get these targets in place between Lang and Paratici. We've had all summer. Now, I'm not saying, guys, I've got to caveat this. I'm not saying that nothing's going to happen between now and the end of the window, right? But because we know how we work, like Gallagher came out of nowhere, right? We know that the Gibbs-White move before it came out of nowhere. That's fine, but I don't believe for however bad we are at the moment, for however low we're thought of by players like Semenyo who will go to bigger clubs, I still think if we can draw people like Kudus, people like Paulinho, people like Conor Gallagher, then we can go out and get a Lookman. We can go out and get Malik Fofana or Solis or just chucking names. But why haven't we done it? Why have we not done it? That's the real worry. And like Billy said, we're playing game after game now is ticking away in January. Every game is ticking away, whether it's getting knocked out of a cup, whether it's league points. And we always go, yeah, well, we'll wait and see at the end of the window. Every point. If we miss out on Europe by 1 point, 2 points at the end of the season, Billy's right. We're going to look back at this window and go, well, we could have helped the manager early, but we haven't. And we're making excuses again. That's all we do. It's just excuses.
Look at some of the other, like
January.
I get, look, I appreciate there has been some better actions. And as I said, the board movements, but look at some of the other stuff that has gone on in this time so you've had, one of their first actions they take is to basically take out a payday loan under the loan facility, right? And to get 100 million in. We're then told countless times how they're going to you know, so then they inject 100 million on top of that, and we're told how they're going to spend 150 million in this January. As it stands, net, we've currently spent zero because Sousa's not over the line, and Gallagher basically costs the same as what Johnson went for. So we spent zero so far, right?
Yeah.
In the summer, we didn't spend anything different to what we normally spend in terms of overall transfer spend. The wages went up a bit, but by the way, we're at 42% wage revenue, and so we've got 100 million pound less in wages than the rest of the big six. So we've got some catching up to do. Then you've had this whole debacle with Paratici, right? So you've announced in September that we re-employed a criminal who we never should have re-employed. And then 3 months later, he's gone before the window that he's meant to be planning for has even been announced. And then he's allowed to stay till the end of that window on his notice period to continue to help us, which is a complete nonsense. This has all gone on under their reign, right? The new bit. So, you know, it's just shambolic. And for me, that's the reason why there's no evidence yet that there's any change. There's a little bit of change, but we've got a huge headroom for change, right? We've got PSR headroom of 300 million. You know, there's huge amounts of money we could be spending to get ourselves out of this rut, and there's no interest in doing that still.
Connor, it's going to take time to change. These guys are not going to do a 180-degree swing like that. It just doesn't happen.
Which is fine, but that's why you've got to hold them to account and continue to
sure,
put pressure
absolutely. Listen, I fully agree, and I'm fully behind tomorrow's protest. I'll be there, and I hope as many people who are going to the game, who are watching this show, will take 15-20 minutes out of their time, out of their day, and come and join us. I do think another cock blocker has been this Paratici-Lange standoff, and I'm speculating, but I think I'm probably right. Why is Paratici going after 3 months? Vinay has put him and Lang as joint DOFs. Come on, that never works. That never works. I cannot see how that's going to work. You know, Lang wants this player, Paratici wants that player. Frank sides with one or the other. I mean, it's a nightmare scenario. You've got to have one DOF working with a manager. It's, you know, Paratici, I think, is looking at the long term. Frank is looking at the short term. I don't get how that was ever going to work. So that's been another nightmare that's derailed Spurs transfer policy.
But Lupo, I get what you're saying about they're not going to do a 180 overnight. But surely we're not asking for 180. We're asking for basics. Like this isn't. I'm not asking for the world. They must be seeing what we're seeing, right? Spurs going forward at the moment have next to nothing, right? Yes, we can all say Solanke's back, but he's been out for a very long time now. Has played about 15 minutes or 20 minutes of football the other night, whatever he played. I don't know, right? Probably not ready to start a game. Probably not going to be up to fitness for another 3-4 weeks in terms of match fitness. Your only wide men are Tell and Odeber, right? You've got Kudus, Maddison, Kulu all out injured. This is basic. This isn't 180. This isn't asking for them to do anything drastic, right? Crystal Palace, yeah, immediately this window, right, wanted Johnson, right, day one, lined up Johnson, got him. Now, thank you very much, Crystal Palace, because I think he's terrible. And when I've watched him play for Palace so far, he looks every bit as crap as he was for us, right? But again, look at Bournemouth, right? When did Semenyo leave Bournemouth? 7 days ago? 8 days ago? Right, yeah, they're in talks.
Yeah, Thursday, right? The day after Spurs.
Right, they're in talks today with Vasco Gama for Rayan. Is it Rayan, the winger? I see him again now. I don't know. I don't know. He's going to be great, but again, these clubs, it's like this player goes, this player's ready to go. Spurs are like, we're just sitting there going, yeah, don't worry that we need a left winger. Now we need a right winger as well. Then we hear, I don't think we're going to do anything because when Kulu and Kudus come back, we'll have too many right wingers. You know, like, the big clubs, Man City aren't worrying about that. Man City right now aren't saying, right, we've all seen the news this morning from Romano, right, that Man City are about to sign Mark Guehi, right? Man City have got John Stones, Ruben Diaz, Nathan Ake, Vardiol, and I'm missing one. Am I missing one?
Juicing the kid as well. So
yeah, okay. So they've got centre backs galore and 2 or 3 are injured. Man City aren't sitting there going, oh, well, hang on. If we buy Gueye, we're going to have loads of centre-backs when they're all fit. No, Man City are going, no, we need it now. We've got our ambitions. We've got our dreams. Right, we need a big bid, do we, for Gueye? We've got to pay over the odds. Cool, boom, done. They'll get him. You all know he's coming in, right? You all know that they will get that deal over the line. And we're not talking, normally you would say, oh, but it's Man City. We're not talking 100 million here. They're going to get him for about 40 million. So why can they act like that? And Spurs are so slow. Like
it's mentality. It's mentality. It's drive. It's desire. It's commitment. It's everything you want your owners and the structure from the top downwards to want as a fan. You know, City fans must love it. My cousin's a City fan. He's like, he lauds it the whole time. Whenever I see him, I get a smile. You know, like you're shit and we're not, sort of thing. And you know, it's just the way it is. It's ambition, correct? Pipes, absolutely.
And the problem is that's what then sets the culture throughout the whole club as well, in terms of the players and everything else. I mean, the players, we know why the players act the way that they do as well, and it's effectively a holiday camp because there's no these clubs have an unfettered ambition to win, and they don't have any loyalties to players. If you're going to start playing poorly, they're ruthless, and it's just completely different. And whereas we know here, there's never been a relative, there's never been an ambition to win at Tottenham. It's effectively let's coast along, see if we can get top four, get a bit of money, and we can spend some more on the Tottenham High Street, and take cash out of the club to spend on that. And unfortunately, I can't see it changing with being Nick 2.0 or the Lewis kids or whatever you want to call them.
Connor, that's why we need new owners.
Connor, I'd love to be wrong. Like, listen, I really want this, right? I really want to be sitting down later on, minding my own business and get an alert that says Spurs have opened talks with insert player, right? Insert player. But it just feels to me that it was perception. They had a really good chance to go, right, okay, do you know what? Let's show these fans this is different. We've got rid of Levy. We've thrown Levy under the bus. And more and more, though, it's looking like Levy, I don't want Levy, but it's looking like Levy's taken the rap for everything when nothing's really changed from the owners. We've replaced Bentancur with, let's be fair, Conor Gallagher said he wanted to move back to England. So it was a nice deal to do, right? It was a
market
nice
opportunity, wasn't it?
Yeah. Atletico need the money because they're not cash rich. Conor Gallagher wants to move back to England. Lovely. Now, would we have been able to get Conor Gallagher if that deal was 65 million and Atletico were battling to keep him because they didn't need money? And this is where I worry about Spurs. Can we be proactive? Can we be really, really proactive and say, we need this? By the way, buying a left winger now isn't even proactive. It's still going to be reactive to Sonny leaving, right? So that's what I want to see. Can we bring in a player where we go, cool, yeah, really like that, didn't see that. Oh, it's not knee-jerk, it's not replacing, and I'm sick of hearing it's January, it's tough to do. There's deals going on everywhere. There's deals going on everywhere all over the world right now. Like, I'm not going to hear this, it's January.
Well, and also, the other response to that is we'll do more in the summer then. We come into every January window going, oh, we need to do loads of work in January, but January is really tough to do. Well, you did have 3 months in the summer to do more work. Can you imagine if one of the other big six finished 17th, but still got the golden ticket of Champions League money? What type of transfer window they would have? They would go ballistic, right?
Well, I've got to tell you,
this is why, Connor, when I called it negligent, these lot, but Lubo and them lot, when I called it negligent in the summer, they all said, oh, you can't do everything in one window. I didn't want to do everything in one window. I just wanted to do more than 4 out, 4 in. I thought we were going to build the squad, grow the squad for a Champions League campaign. And we didn't. We bought, essentially in that window, what we did was replace Maddison because we knew he was injured, right? We replaced Solanke because we knew he was injured. That was a panic buy. Yeah. And we bought in a right winger and a DM. Essentially, the right winger and the DM were the only two that were planned, right, to build the squad. Everything else was a reaction. So this window, you go, right, show me something different, Enoch. And I'm going, nope, you've got Gallagher, who I love over here. That's fine. But again, it was in reaction to Bentancur. So where's I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing that it's different. I'm not seeing that it's different in any way, shape or form at all.
Well, we'll see. I think there are differences. Not enough, but there are differences. They've moved Johnson
in the buys. How?
In the buys, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We can't turn around after 2 weeks and say, oh, by the way, sorry, Sav, I think we should keep our powder dry until the second, third.
I hear this every week. I've heard this every window, but for 2 decades, I've heard we don't know. But again, Lubo, this is the point. The fact that it's different is that we didn't go early. Like again, we've not come out the blocks and gone, let's show what we're about. It's all reactive, which is the same, Lubo. We will buy a right winger or a left winger now, right? If we buy either, let's be brutally honest, a left winger is to replace Son and a right winger is because Kudus has got injured, right? None of this has been proactive, has it? So when you're saying keep your powder dry, none of it is proactive.
But when Kudus comes back, you've got 2 quality players, hopefully. So yes, it is.
But it's up
listen, yes, it's reactive, but you can be pedantic, or you can say, great, we've got a really good player in. Gallagher's an upgrade on Bentancur. You can turn around and slag him off and say, but okay, that was replacing Bentancur, but we've got a much better player now. So for me, that's a massive plus for our club. I'm not.
There's no problem. I agree. Look, and by the way, look, sometimes you have to be reactive as well. City's.
It's reactive, so it's shit. No, it's not shit.
No,
it's much better than Bentancur.
No.
I'm sorry, it's much better. I'm sorry, it's just a real negative look. I'm sorry.
No one said it was shit. The difference was we were talking about, has anything fundamentally changed? No one said it was shit. You just got your knickers in a twist. No one said that, right? What we said is there's a difference between being proactive in the market that would show we have changed and being reactive because we get injuries. Now, the problem that's always been leveled at Tottenham is we will only make these signings because somebody left or there was an injury. That's what we're seeing again. So what I'm not saying is, Connor, I'm not saying, oh my God, it's shit, it's shit, it's shit. What I'm saying is, and I think you might be slightly on the same page as me here.
I am, yeah.
I like that Gallagher's come in. It's an upgrade. I'm not knocking that. But what I'm saying is, would the Gallagher deal have been done if Bentancur hadn't got injured?
No, look, let me give you an example of another club in this exact same window, which really brings it to life, right? Semenyo was a proactive signing for City. They already had several forwards, better than any one we've got. They signed Semenyo. They then went out and gone, we've got centre-back injuries, and it looks like they're going to sign Guy. That's reactive. So there's nothing wrong with having reactive signings. But I think what Savva and I are trying to say is there's no proactivity still, right? So I'm happy that Gallagher's come in to replace Bentancur, and as you say, he's a much better player. That's great. But at the start of the window, where was we desperately need a forward. Where's the forward?
Yeah.
We're on the 16th. Right. And games are running away, right, and we still haven't done it. And it was already too late, and it would have already been reactive. But that's where I think we lack both sides of it. I don't, and a couple of people have said in the chat that there's no problem with being reactive. There isn't, but you need to do both, and we never do the other bit.
And Connor, that's my point. I think it's great that Spurs went, oh, Bentancur's out. Cool, let's go and get Gallagher. He's better. Brilliant. Praise that. I'm the one championing the Conor Gallagher movement, right? But you're right. It's proactive. How do we make our squad better without it needing to be replacing somebody all the time? We didn't do it in the summer. So far, we've not done it this window. So when people are saying, I think we're seeing differences, I'm asking how? It's all reactive. Would we be after a winger if Kudus didn't get injured? I don't think we would. I don't even know if we are, by the way. I don't know if we are, but I don't think we would. There's no senior right winger in the club, and there's no senior left winger in the club. And we're 16 days into a window going, come on, can we go and get a proper winger, please? Can we, like this shouldn't be a shock to the club. We knew we needed it. They would have known Brennan Johnson was going. There were people telling us. Chris Armstrong told us in December, Conor Gallagher, that Brennan Johnson's gone. If he knew, Spurs knew, right? So where's the proactive nature of one in, we just don't do it. We just don't.
So to anyone questioning whether I'm in or out on the chat, I've seen a few comments. The club have made £150 million available to the recruitment team to buy players. They've got 33.5 in for Johnson, and they've spent, what have they spent? 34 million, so call it like for Gallagher. They've spent 12 million on the Brazilian guy. So by my maths, that's about 137, 138 million that is there to spend. This conversation is nothing to do with ENIC. This is to do with the recruitment team, who I don't think are good enough. Perichis is going. I don't think Lange is good enough. These are the players. You're on mute, Sav.
On mute, Sav.
Sav, you're on mute.
If Levy was overseeing this transfer window, you would have the absolute opposite reaction to what you're having now.
Not if he had made 150 million available, Sav. But that was
how do we know that has definitely happened, right? That is just speculation as well, right?
Yeah. This is what I mean. If it was Levy...
Would you say Ali Gold is a spokesman spokesperson for the club?
Well, I think journalists get stuff wrong often.
They feed him.
But I also think, to be honest, I do agree with you, by the way. I think Langer is a massive issue in terms of the planning, and then obviously you've had the whole Paratici nonsense. But you could run that further to say who employed them, and this new ENIC 2.0 could have made a decision on the 1st of September when the transfer window ended. We're getting rid of both, and we're going to employ one competent sporting director. So they're still culpable because they've allowed this to happen, right? In terms of who is the sporting director, they employ the recruitment team, so they're still culpable in my mind. But yeah, I mean, look, that is another problem for us that they're not good enough. Clearly. Look,
do you know what? Right, and I'm hoping. I say hoping. It's fundamental to Tottenham, right? It is a necessity that in the next couple of weeks we bring in a couple of players in those forward areas. But again, what I won't do is turn around and go, "Oh my God, it's all changing. It's amazing." Because what I will do is then say, right, okay, get to the summer. Show us in the summer that you're proactive again. Show us that between February and June that you have planned. Show us that, it can't constantly be this reactive stuff. It can't.
Savva, I'll tell you what, how I'll give them credit, right? I'll give them credit if in February they sack Langer, because to Lubo's point, if he's the issue as to why this January recruit, they go and sack him and they go and say, look, Paratici's gone, he's gone, and we're going to go and get a new sporting director in time for the summer so that we can plan ahead for the summer. I'll give them credit for doing that, and I'll say, look, they've done the right thing. If Langer's still employed by the summer, then I'm sorry, there's no excuse whatsoever, because then that completely disproves, Lubo, what you're saying in terms of it just being the recruitment team's fault, because they're the ones that have employed him. I mean, they should have done this, as I said, in September, so they're already, in my mind, 3 or 4 months late. Yeah. But if they don't do something in February, then that's a joke.
What they have done, Connor, that we can all see, because all the wages are reported quite openly, is that they are paying more money for better players coming in.
You've got humongous room to do it, though. I mean,
absolutely.
we are.
No, absolutely. But and for me, you mentioned 42% wages to turnover ratio. That was based on the previous year's figures, year ending June 24. Year ending June 25 comes out end of Feb. That's going to be even lower. It's going to be about 36, 37, 38%. So it's gone down even more, because last summer, not this summer, the previous summer, they brought in Solanke. They cleared out 16 players. I know a lot of them were on minimum wage as far as footballers are concerned, but they cleared out. That they got rid of Højbjerg's wages, Lo Celso's wages, Wink's wages, and all they brought in was Solanke.
And I mean, to give some context, right?
Grandberg were on lower wages. Yang was on 15 grand a week, I think. So yeah, the wages dropped. Paul O'Keefe actually said May of last year that Levy was bringing down the wage bill to make the club more attractive for investors to come in and put some money in.
Yeah, and to give some context to the viewers in terms of how low those numbers are, right? When ENIC took over, our wage to revenue ratio was 56%. It's now 42, and as Lubo says, is likely to be lower once they announce the next set of accounts. And there is no Premier League club over the period that ENIC have owned a club that have ever been less than 50% in terms of the average. So that gives you a sense of the way that they've run this football club, which is completely different to any other Premier League football club.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, for me, I've got two minds about the whole salary thing. At the end of the day, they had to, because players, you wouldn't even get Conor Gallagher's or Kudus's if you didn't up the salaries, right? So I think they kind of had to do that to move with the times. I'm not knocking. I think some of the players they've been going after is great. That does show a slight improvement, right? But on the same hand, right, here's what I'll say, and this is, again, very much devil's advocate. We all want to sit here and slag off Johan Lang, but then we want to say, well, hang on, we've started to see an improvement in the scale of players we're going for in terms of Gibbs White, in terms of Eze, in terms of Gallagher, in terms of Savio and Morgan Rogers. This is why I feel like we pick and choose as fans who it is we want to put the blame on. And it feels very much that now Levy's gone, we're picking and choosing who else in a football club takes the brunt. So Thomas Frank is taking way more brunt than other managers because now no one's got Daniel Levy to have a go at, right? Lang is taking way more brunt than other directors of football because, again, Daniel Levy's not here right now. So I don't know. And that's why fundamentally I need to see, first of all, right, I'll say this. Do you know, Perchie said to me yesterday, right? We're having a chat and he said to me, don't you just yearn for the day that we don't have a panel show talking about men in suits? Like, don't you yearn for the day where we talk about the pitch, the players, the man, and we stop talking about who is running this club, the directors of football? And I can't agree with him more. I don't give a shit who Rafi Mawson is. If, like, back in the day, I didn't give a shit. I knew Alan Sugar was the chairman. I knew Terry Venables was the manager, and I knew what the squad was. Didn't know anything else. Didn't care. No.
Is that not the difference, though, Sav, between our owners and every other owner?
What's that?
You're saying you want to be talking about football only. Well, this is the difference between our owners and other football clubs.
And the difference is that we've got 776 people in here, Lubo. Yeah. And we need to get Connor and Billy to 1,000 subscribers, and these lot in the chat are being tight. Guys and girls, there is the link. Here it is. Please, can 300 odd of you get over right now? There's 800 of you right now in this chat. I'm not asking you to subscribe to me. I'm not asking you to put any money in. I'm not asking you to say anything. Smash that button on this link. Subscribe to these guys. You know their channel's going to be fire. So please get over there and do that. You tight Daniel Levy wannabes. Come on, do it.
I've got to ask you, Connor, did Chris, who's a referee, actually give you that title?
No, it's McNamara's band, Lubo. Come on.
You know what you should have called it? You should have called it Spurs 7-Point Manifesto. That's what you should have called it, Connor.
No, that's what I would call if I did.
I was going to say, Lubo's copyrighted that, mate. Can't
with a picture of Lubo in his cup. This would be a great picture. Lubo with some files in his hand and his Peaky Blinders cap.
Yes, that's it. With a 7-Point
manifesto. Yeah.
Lubo, when you come on the show, you can run through that in detail. I won't interrupt you. Don't worry. We'll let you do it.
I'm more than happy to.
Guys, smash that button, please. 10 of you, 10 more of you have. There's 800 of you in here. Come on, can we get another 100? Come on, guys. You all love Connor. You all love Billy. What is there not to like? If you subscribe to me and to Lubo, you can subscribe to these guys. Come on.
Lubo, can I just say to Gruffage, if you got any magic beans, more than happy, particularly when I'm watching Spurs tomorrow. Do I believe they will invest 150 million? No, I'm just saying that Ali Gold reported that there is 150 million there to spend. So
let's be fair. Whether it's 150 million, Lubo, there should be a shed load of money available to buy players, right? Connor is right, what he said at the beginning of the show. they come out and they talk about winning leagues, winning Champions Leagues. Now, whilst that sentiment for me is pie in the sky, to even start to begin to talk about that, you've got to invest. And at the moment, what's going to be thrown at them, which is, you two will be better with the finance than me, right? But what's going to be thrown at them, whether this is right or wrong, is, all right, Valise and Johnson out for what, 44, 43 million or whatever that is between them.
45 million.
Gallagher and Sosa in between them is what, 45, 46 million. We're looking at £3 million spend, and fans will go, well, clearly that's not any, there's no ambition there, is there? You're literally just getting players out, getting players in and balancing books. Or am I being too simplistic, Lubo?
Yeah, listen, that's how it looks. And you know, for everybody that's had to put up with 25 years of ENIC, that's the obvious assumption, isn't it? Is what they're doing clever buying and selling? That's one question. Second question is, you know, if you bring in a player for 5 million like Dele Alli, 15 million like Modric, 12 million like Dembele, etc., etc., etc. Bergvall, I think, will be very good. You picked him up for 8.5 million. If you buy cleverly and you can buy cheap and you can get good players in, then there's nothing wrong with that. For me, it's about having the right players at the club. And if they spend 5 million on a player or they spend 80 million on a player, I don't care. I just want to see the best players in for my football team on the pitch when I go and watch Spurs each weekend. So for me, that's important. I think we all look at the financial side, and to be honest, we should be looking at the players. Forget the money. The money doesn't affect us. We're just fans. We go and watch our team, or whether it's the telly, whether it's the match, whatever it is, we watch our team. We want the best for our team, and we want the best players on the pitch. And that's it as a fan. Do I give a shit whether someone costs 30 million or 60 million? I don't give a crap. Do not give a shit whether whatever they pay. If they bring the right player in, it doesn't bother me. It's not my money. And for people that might say, well, you're a shareholder, don't get any dividends anyway. So forget that. So for me, that's what it's all about. There's so much spoken about the money side. It should just be about the players. Who do we need? You know, what players should we be going for? You know, the conversation about a left winger. These are relevant conversations. How much we pay for them, how much the actual spend is, shouldn't, you know, unless you're looking at a series of buys at big money, or just a series of buys at any sort of money that are wrong, you can then look at that and say, hang on a sec, who's bringing these players in? They need to go because they're just not up to it. We need a better recruitment person, but that's football related. It's, you know, and it should really be about which players are working, who's picked who's, you know, has Lang picked A, B, C, D, and E, has Paratici picked A, B, C, D, and E. I know it's irrelevant now because Paratici is leaving, but, you know, which of them is bringing in the right players for the club and who's bringing in the wrong players? Is there a strategy? And again, you go back to that 7-point manifesto about number one, ambition, number two, having a strategy, long, mid, and short term. And these are the things. These are the foundations for a club. Because without stuff like this, the rest of it's rubbish. The rest of it's all reactive. It's all short term. It's just, you know, just reaction. You know, it is. There's nothing substantial to build a first team squad round to build for success. And for me, this is the problem. This is why we've had a problem for 25 years. This is why I'm protesting tomorrow. This isn't particularly This isn't particularly about transfers. I just want owners in that are committed to the club, that are running the club in the correct way. It's going to take years for Spurs to get back to where we were 7-8 years ago under Poch. You know, it's going to take several transfer windows. If we buy 2 players, which we have this January, or we buy 4 players, obviously 4 players are going to be better than 2 players, but it's going to take years and years and several transfer windows for this to be put right. You know, and what are we talking about? We might qualify for 7th in a Conference League place. 6th would be, I'd be over the moon if we bring in 1 or 2 more players and we can hit 6th. I just don't think we're there at the moment. I don't think we've got enough players. I think we're missing long. We've got long-term absentees. who like Kudus, like Kulu, like Madison, who are game changers. They're they influence the way we play. They influence the way matches go. I think we've lost too much. We need to replace all of them pretty quickly, and have backup in order to go and challenge for top six. Don't think we're anywhere close.
No, but this is a situation we've caused ourselves, right? This is
Of course.
It's years and years of chopping
Connor,
and changing managers,
Connor, it's been 10
terrible
years.
recruitment, not
That's
investing under the right manager in Poch when we actually had the team where you only had to do one or two, built up a massive problem. Then you did a rebuild at a time when players were more expensive, so then had to spend more. You buying shit, so you're buying twice. And so this is all a situation that we've caused by terrible planning, and it's
I saw the figures that came out. They gave the figures that the top six have spent since Poch went 6 years ago. And
slightly misleading, but
it is. But funny enough, our net spend is probably quite high because we haven't got that much back on players, have we?
I think Kane, obviously, in that time is the sizable one. But yeah, I mean, the other reason it's misleading is because actually, it doesn't include wages, right? So net spend plus wages would be a much better barometer of what the club has spent versus just doing what gross spend has been. And if you do that comparison over the last 10 years, Tottenham have spent £1 billion less than the next closest Big Six club in 10 years on wages and net spend. So, that is completely strategically different, compared to.
But you look at the money, Connor, that has been wasted on players.
Yeah, we've wasted. Yeah, of course.
You start off, the first 130 million was the Celso, who I liked as a player, but unfortunately was made of glass. Ndombele, Sessegnon, another one that was constantly injured, but was bought as a bright prospect who had a really good season at Fulham, and Jack Clark, who had a brilliant half season before I think he got glandular fever and then came back afterwards. But the Leeds fans I know were talking about this kid being absolutely brilliant at that stage. But I think the illness knocked it out of him, and he's never quite got back to those heights. That was the start, and so you've got 130 there. Ange spent 380 in his 23 months. That's 510. You've got 130 million spent last summer. That's 640. So you had Conte, Nuno, Jose, who have spent another 350 between them over those 4 years, which again isn't a tremendous amount of money, particularly for those managers. So and Ange bought so many players that were squad players. There was hardly anybody, after the first window, when he brought in Madison, Van der Ven, and Johnson. In terms of the first 11, the only player he bought to actually come straight in the subsequent 2 winter windows and the following summer was Solanke. Bergvall had plenty of games and Gray, but they were brought in as squad players. Ferguson, squad player. Veliz, Danso, Kinski, they're all squad players. Yang went out on loan. That so many, but none of them were brought in as game changers for the first 11. So you've had 380 million spent there, and hardly anybody. What did you have? 30 for Madison, 34 for Mickey, 64, 57 for Solanke is 121. Johnson was 47. That's 168. He paid for himself because his goal took us into the Champions League. So and what did we do? We got 12 million less or 14 million less. But the money that he's generated through this Champions League run, and if Johnson hadn't have been there, made that run, and if he hadn't have scored, the chances are we would have lost that final because we just never looked like scoring, did we? I think that was the last attack we had pretty much. Last time we got into their area, wasn't it? We didn't get into their box. I don't think the whole of the second half in Bilbao. So the money, there's so much money, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds of purchases.
Oh yeah, and look,
just wasted.
I'm not disputing that we've spent, and wasted money for sure since we moved into the new stadium. We have spent more on transfers and we've wasted loads of money.
Oh.
There's no doubt on that. But what I'm saying is disingenuous is like using that as it isn't Enix's fault because they've spent. It's a bit like people used to do this with United fans who moaned about Glazer and they go, "Oh, look how much money the club have spent," but then didn't realise how bad the Glazers were because they'd also during that time took out about £900 million in interest. So comparably to the rest of the big six, we still could have spent more money, significantly more.
Loads more.
And as I say, wages is the other big piece where every year we're spending £100 million less than those other clubs on wages. So it's all well and good going. The transfer fees are what they are, but that's not the full picture. Can I just say,
Connor, with that, I mean, like I just flashed up that image. I think loads of people have seen this image now, right? In terms of Arsenal and Spurs and spending, and obviously that I saw you talk about it last night. It doesn't take into account wages and that kind of thing. But where I get frustrated with this club is it feels like we're constantly buying players who aren't ready for the first team. It feels like there's been no plan to actually build a team and then add to it. Like we're constantly buying Tells and Odebers. We're constantly buying Grays and Bergfels. We're constantly buying Yangs. Like, I'm not blaming them. I'm not blaming them. But at what point are we going to go, well...
But that's sad. That's what I just said.
But,
18 players and only 5.
Okay, but this...
Four okay, for the first team.
So, again, this comes back to... Then I get confused as to why then when we do that with somebody like Gallagher, fans lose their mind. You're like, I want Spurs to go and buy 3 or 4 more Gallaghers. I don't mean in his position, but you know what I mean? I want Spurs to go and buy 3 or 4 more solid options like Gallagher across the pitch. And you go, right, that's sensible. Now build out. I want Spurs. We had this chat on the phone the other day, Lubo. I want Spurs to turn around and go, right, we've got a top left winger. Right, we need one young left winger to develop behind that we've bought, and maybe one from the academy. So then you go, right, okay, you've got Tell or Odeber as that guy. Okay, you've got Mikey Moore. But what Spurs have gone and done is we've bought Tell, we've bought Odeber, we've bought Yang. It's like, I don't know what the planning is.
Sure.
And the Gallagher signing shows that you don't have to spend hundreds of millions on footballers to get a good footballer, but we don't seem to do that. We can't seem to get that right. Even with the signing of Sosa, nothing against the lad. I hope he's a great success, but again, we're going for those type. We've got these in abundance throughout the squad. We've got these in abundance, but we're still doing it, and that's why I don't know what we want to be. And when I talk about fan expectation, Lubo, we all sit here and go, "Oh, we want to see much better football, and we should be high up the table." And the fan expectation for me doesn't align with the caliber of squad that we've got.
Right,
it's a real worry.
If you're, the fan base didn't particularly look at the Sakai signing. It was like, this kid's been brought in, Japanese international, 20 years old, £5 million, but we brought in 4 senior pros in Simmons, Kudus, Polinia, and Moani. So you had 4-1 there. So if you're doing a 4-1 or a 5-1, where you're bringing a young kid, but you brought 4 senior professionals in, I don't think anybody's going to say anything, because you've got to have, if the powers that be at Spurs don't think that the kids out on loan are going to make it, and they've already made a decision with Veliz, it looks like they made a decision with Donnelly, so there's 2. They made a decision. Well, Keeley wanted first team football. He went at the end of last season. So already there are decisions being made on some of the kids there. Ajayi has come back. He's gone out to your team, Bromley, now, Sav, so you can watch him locally.
And Connor's team.
You can keep in touch with your mate Lang and give a report to him each week. So if you're bringing in the senior players and the odd kid, then that's fine. I do agree with you. You've got Mikey Moore, who I think is having this. This is the best possible loan for a Spurs kid to go into a league like the Premier League in Scotland, for a club like Rangers, where expectations are high. You've got full houses wherever you go, which is great for him. He's getting used to playing to big crowds as well. The pressure's on him to perform. because the pressure is on every Rangers player to perform, because it's Rangers and Celtic. And okay, we've got Hearts this year. And that's the sort of loan that you want. Vuskovic is another one. Great loans that he is having. Hamburg, what a season he's having. So, you know, he's going with Croatia to the World Cup. Hopefully, you know, if he's being picked as a first, you know, as in the first 11 for Croatia, everybody's going to see him on the biggest stage. You know, and he'll be in mentally, he'll be at the right place, I think, to come back in. And if we get rid of Romero next season, for me, if Vuskovic has a good World Cup, fantastic. You've got a player ready to come straight in. And this is how the loans.
Even that sums up what Tottenham do, isn't it? Like, it isn't if Romero goes, we'll go out and sign another centre-back so that we've got, you know, it's like, oh, we've got this 18-year-old kid who looks great prospect, but he'll come in. You know, surely if Romero goes or Van de Ven goes, you've got to go and sign a centre-half.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yes, but again, but if he's good enough, regardless of who we have and who we bring in as a replacement, if he's good enough, he will start. But just talking about kids, and I'm just sort of focusing on kids and the loans. You know, Tyrese Hall, another one who's having a really good loan, but again, it's 3 divisions below, so he's maybe one to look for the future. But if what's his name, Lewis, doesn't think that the kids are good enough, which is why he sent 12 of them out on loan in the summer, then, you know, if he looked at them and the reports are coming back and Spurs are following all the players that are out on loan, they're having people out there watching them every week. If they don't think they're going to make it, then you've got to bring in other kids to replace if your academy kids are not coming through at the same time. Now, we've got 3 in the academy who hopefully are going to get into the first team squad in the next couple of years, in Williams, Barnett, Byfield and Tynan Thompson. So that's looking promising. There isn't that much else, I must tell you. Watching them in the Youth Cup the other week, those 3 stood out. I've watched Byfield a couple of times. Those 3 have stood out amongst that age group. They are so much better than everybody else. But there has to be a plan in place, and this is where your long-term strategy comes in, and that brings in the academy. What are we looking for? How many players are we looking to bring in? What positions are there? You know, what are we doing to get the kids into the club rather than going to the other London clubs? But at the
same time,
this is all lacking. It's all part of it, Sad. The whole thing down to the academy. City do it. City, look at what City and Chelsea have done with the academies in the last few years. Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Sure, but again, at the same time, we're being really contradictory here, because what we want to do is we want to bring in Greys, we want to bring in Bergvals, we want to bring in Sosas, we want to bring in Vuskovics, we want to bring in Yangs, and then at the same time we're saying, well, hang on, where's the pathway for any of these academy players? And you're like, well, hang on, you can't have your first team squad, your pros, then buy a load of youngsters in and around that 18, 19, 20-year age and have a pathway for all of these kids. The problem is this middle tier, I said here, the likes of Gray, Bergvall, Tell, Odeber, Yang, all of those people in there, they block that because you're filling up there so much. What most clubs do is they'll go there with the senior pros, they'll buy 1 or 2 in here that they think they can develop and then promote their youth. We've gone so heavy in the middle, then the fans praise all of those players. So when fans are praising Gray, right? When fans are praising Tellen Odeber, these are the people that are going to block Mikey Moore. These are the people that are going to block Tyrese Hall. I
disagree. I think if Moore has
the map don't matter. You can't have all of them.
Tell's already looking to leave. More will come in ahead of Tell and ahead of Odeber next year.
That's not the point. But Lubo, the point isn't who's looking to leave. The point is, again, that there's no planning behind it, right? If Spurs have gone out in the last 3-4 windows, right, and we've bought in Yang, Tell, Odeber, Bergvall, Gray, Vuskovic, Ashley Phillips, we're buying in Kinski, Sosa, right? We're buying in all those players that are young in that middle level there, right? And then we're going, Well, why doesn't Keeley get a game? There's no way for him. Why doesn't Donnelly? Why doesn't Devine? Why you can't, Lubo? You can't.
Do you think they've also bought them because actually the academy kids are no good? Do you know, this is what I keep being told how great the academy is. I mean, how many in the last 25 years? How many Premier League quality players has Tottenham Academy produced? I'm struggling to know.
Well,
just Premier League standard. It's got to be less. It's definitely less than 15. It's probably, you know, Kane is obviously one. Skip, Winks have played in the Premier League. Madueke was in the academy. You know, there's 10 or something like that. Do that same comparison for Chelsea and Arsenal, and it'll be many, many multiples. Man City will be multiples of that, and they've only done it because as I said earlier, we've underinvested in the academy, no doubt. We probably had a period where we weren't willing to pay kids as much to come to our, you know, once they get their sort of first sort of contracts and all that type of stuff. You know, so, you know, I think what the club have done actually with the young players that they're signing, I think they're starting to think, you know, we need to sign the likes of Bergvall and Gray because we've got this club trained issue whenever we get into Europe, and we need these guys to start to get to club trained because the likes of Dane Scarlett are never going to be good enough to be in a Champions League squad. And so that's why I think they've started to feel this. this
Connor, I agree, but this is the thing, and this is where Lubo and I have always disagreed. We really rate a lot of these young kids. Whenever I've seen any of them play, even at Notts County or Orient, or I'm not looking at any of them and going, "Yeah, you're you know that special level you need to break into a Premier League first team." Yeah. I don't look at any of ours and go, "Yeah." Now, there's the argument that you don't know until you try. But if every manager's not giving them a go, it tells you something, right? Ledley King was good enough. Ledley King came through, was good enough, was chucked in, end of story. He was that good. Declan Rice at West Ham came in, played a game, stayed in the team. The problem is we have got so many youth products that everyone will tell you is the best. Everyone will tell you it's the best we've had for years. Look how good they are, yada, yada, yada. None of them are making it through. Then on top of that, we're buying more young players who, for me, are average young players as well, by the way, Connor. For me, when I look at Tell, Odeberg, Gray, but I don't see anything special in any of these. I see that this is just more young players being thrown into a squad, right? For me, this football club, at the moment, we're worrying about down here. We've got to worry about up here. Before any of this, get this right, get a well-drilled, well-organised team, get an ethos, get a structure, get a plan, and then the ones that are good enough from these two brackets will fight. And if they fight and they're good enough, they will make their way through. But we've got so many in this middle bracket.
I mean, that's the other problem. I mean, we're throwing, you know, I defend the young Bergvall and Gray a little bit more than you do, just because I get what you're saying, but I also just think they're being thrown into something that is so dysfunctional. What chance have they got as well at that age? You know, I mean,
I agree, but the difference is, Connor, the difference is at that age, I don't expect to see anything amazing from them, right? I don't expect their performance to be great, but I do expect at that age that I'm going to look at them and go, yeah, there's something about you. I'm sorry. I've never, ever watched Archie Gray play a game of football and gone, wow, I really get why we signed this kid. I look at him like every other young 18, 19-year-old I see across the Championship, League One, and go, all right, what? There's nothing. Like, same with Tell and Odeberg. These guys have moments, right? And every time they have a moment, we're so short on quality, Connor, that what we do is, so like Odeberg scored the other night. I actually thought Odeberg was really poor against Aston Villa. In across the game, I thought he was really poor. I thought he scored a good goal.
Tell was better than Odeberg in the game.
Yeah. And then because he gets the goal, people start going, Odeberg. You're like, no, but this isn't youth football. This is Premier League, Champions League football. You don't have a moment in a game. You've got to be playing for 90 minutes. Now, whilst I agree with you, Connor, it's not their fault. They shouldn't have been thrown in, right? Spurs, though, have gone and bought all these young players. Fans have bigged them up, right? I'm judging them by the way they're bigged up. So when I'm watching Bergvall and Gray, I want to see, okay, show me something. You don't have to run the game. You don't have to go, oh my God.
I think Bergvall has done more of that, to be fair, than you know, last season. I mean, last season he had a number of decent games. I mean, we were chaotic and we were a mess, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think
I agree.
And I think the other thing you would say for Bergvall is that's a hard transition to make at 18 as well, from the Swedish league straight into the Prem for sure. And I mean,
So shouldn't he be doing what Vuskovic is right now? Shouldn't Bergvall and Gray be doing what Vuskovic are right now?
Yes,
Out on loan.
or if they're going to stay at the club, they should be fourth and fifth choice and only getting 20 minutes. You know?
Connor, I fully agree, but the investment in players hasn't been made by the club.
Well, that's exactly it.
And that's why they played so many games. You know, I mean, Gray's played in 7 positions now. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's just a nonsense. You know,
I mean, they've done it to Bergvall. They've done it to Bergvall this season as well, haven't they? I mean,
I think
he's played left wing, right wing, number 8, number 10, number 6.
Yeah.
I do agree, though. Look, listen, whilst it might sound like I'm harsh on the youth, listen, if a youth player's that good, I'll just say they're that good. You know, when I watch Gavi and Pedri coming through at Barca, it's probably a bad example because they're different level. At the age of 17, 18, I never went, oh, bless them, they're young. I went, wow, look at these boys play football, right? Where I do feel sorry for is, again, the squad has been put together so badly in terms of positions. Now, this comes back to the conversation we had earlier about not buying a left winger. Right. So when Lubo's going, oh, well, you know, they tried in the summer and they're trying that. Well, the problem is all the while they're doing that, we're relying on these youngsters who aren't ready. Right. They've got no one to learn off. They've got no one to grow off. And right now, we're all going to be arguing tomorrow. Oh, who should start on the left? Should it be Tell? Should it be Odegaard? It shouldn't be that. It should be one of them in the squad.
They'll both be starting, I reckon.
But Lubo, that's my point.
Yeah.
What it should be is Spurs should be starting tomorrow's game with a competent left winger. Let's just for example, let's just use Lookman as an easy example. Sure. Nothing, right? Spurs should be starting the game with a Lookman on the left wing, a Tell on the bench, and then with 15 minutes to go, hopefully when you're up, you go, right, okay, Lookman, you come off, you scored your goal, you got your assist, right, Tell, go and run at some tired legs, 15 minutes, show us what you can do. But what we'll do tomorrow, because of necessity, because we've got no one else, is both of those two are going to start the game, right? Tell and Odegaard are both going to start this game, unless he puts Xavi Simons out wide left. They're both going to start this game. And everyone will go well overboard about them if they get a cross into the box or a shot away. And that, for me, shows the level of how far we've fallen. It shows how far we've fallen. Players only have to do one thing. And me and Lubo had this chat the other day against the Bournemouth game. I don't think Bergvall did anything, but because he had a couple of pop shots from 20 yards, we go, oh, didn't you see what he did? Well, but like, that's not how we should be judging Premier League footballers. We shouldn't be judging Premier League footballers on one pass or one cross. It should be, what did you do for 90 minutes?
Sure. And when you look at Poch's team 8 years ago, the only youngster that played in that team was Dele Alli. It was the only one. That was it. And he was exceptional. I mean, nobody could say otherwise. I mean, I think
look at the youngsters you got now and look at Dele, right? This is what I mean, Lubo. Look at the levels that we're talking about.
I mean,
context is he also came into a very functioning team, right? You know,
and he's a much better.
And he was the only one. He was obviously. Yeah, he was. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm not doubting that. But it helps, right?
Because of the shit show that we are. But if you're a good footballer, you can see someone's a really good footballer.
Of course,
I couldn't tell you what Gray is. I can't tell you what. I don't know what Tell is, and I don't know what. I know what Odegaard is, but I don't know what Tell is. I don't know what Gray is. I don't know what Bergvall is. I'm not saying that there's not something in there with Bergvall, for example, but I don't know. When people are going, oh, Frank's wasting him. It's like, wasting what? What is he?
I've got a fly. But does this not show you how bad it's been the last year and a half for these kids? You had a situation with Ange where there was no tactics, no system. It was just chaos, you know, and Bergvall and Gray have come from coaching systems that, I mean, they must have walked into that and thought, what the hell's going on here? This year, it's been very defensive. Again, we're short of players. We're short of quality. So you're throwing. I'm seeing comments. Gray shite, Gray. Bergvall shite.
I don't think it's the shite.
I can ask you guys. These are 19-year-old kids. They're 19-year-old kids. How many 19-year-old kids are in the midfield in Liverpool, in City, in Arsenal? in Chelsea, and we're expecting 19-year-old kids to perform and be competitive with these top professionals. You know, it is unrealistic. The problem is that we have had 10 years of shit, real bad recruitment, and we haven't paid the wages we should have paid, which means we haven't got the players we should have got, which all goes from players like Mane, Wijnaldum, Zaha, all of these players that Ruben Diaz, Bruno Fernandes, they're all players that we missed. All of them were missed that shouldn't have been missed because a lot of them because of wages and because Levy wouldn't pay fees. And this is where we are now. So you've got the Grays and Bergvaus in midfield because we're short of quality.
I agree, Lubo, but that's not the point. But Lubo, they're I know you need to shoot, but there can be two different things, right? As well as I'm not saying that I'm the one saying I don't think these boys should be starting for Spurs. But
I don't think they should be starting for Spurs.
I'm just saying, as footballers, when I watch them, forget whether they should be starting.
You want to see a bit more as well.
Yeah. I don't see what anyone sees where they go, Gray's going to be a really good player. I'm looking and going, you look like every other 18, 19-year-old that's ever come through an academy. There's nothing special about him that makes me think Spurs spent 40 million. That's the point.
Sure.
So for me, what does he do? Hang on, what does he do that we couldn't have said, Tyrese Hall, go on, have those minutes without spending 40 million?
Sure.
That's what frustrates me. Now, if he's brilliant in the future, brilliant. I've got nothing to gain or lose by that. I just don't see anything in him. When I watch Lewis Miley play for Newcastle, I see something in him as a footballer. He's got that go. He's got that zip. He's got that. When I watch Gray, he looks like a scared young kid who I don't think is particularly good at anything. Now, I'm not blaming him for Spurs, Lubo. There's two different stories here. I don't blame him for performances. I don't blame him for opposition. I'm just talking about him as a footballer. I don't see what it is that made someone say, we must buy that kid. That's the worry for me.
Yeah, I mean, put the price aside for a second, which obviously was an overspend for sure. I think. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say about Gray, and it hasn't translated to the men's game in the Premier League because I don't think he's physically ready, to your point, and I think he does look like a scared kid. He was definitely one of the highest rated academy kids throughout all of football. I mean, and in his first season in the Championship, he won the Championship Young Player of the Season. So there's more to him in terms of that level until we got to that level compared to like a Tyrese Hall, in my opinion,
Sure.
And he's played for England at every single age group, so he clearly was a very good young prospect. I don't think he's developed at all at Tottenham, to your point yet. I think, and you could argue, is that because of us being dysfunctional and
sure,
and the way that we're, asking too much of him, or is it just that he's not developing? I think we need to see how that plays out in due course. But I think all of these things are true. I don't think we're seeing enough from them, but at the same time, we're not giving them the conditions to thrive either. So it's a bit of both. And ultimately, the overall issue comes down to the recruitment and the ownership again, without bringing it back to them all the time.
But it does. The whole thing is a mess, and that's another player who you could turn around and say, we would have hoped he would have progressed a little bit more. But, he's got to have the players around. He's got to have the team around him. The team are not functioning. They haven't been functioning apart from a few games this season. Very difficult for young kids, whoever they are, to come into a team that is not functioning where he's got top professionals. Foden walked into a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, so Foden's not the example because Foden is an anomaly. No. He is a brilliant footballer from about 16.
I'm just using Foden as an example. He was the first kid that's come to mind for a well-functioning team like City. I couldn't think of anyone.
Yeah, of course. Like, I hear you.
Whereas with Liverpool, they tend to buy more, don't they? They don't tend to bring players through. Arsenal, Saka's another one that's come through.
He should be on loan. In an ideal world right now, should Archie Gray be on loan for me, Archie Gray should be on loan at a Middlesbrough, a Coventry. If Gray's that good, he should be on loan at one of the top 6 sides in the Championship, starting each week, And that would have told us that Spurs have actually bought properly our end and that we can allow him to go and develop while we've got senior pros in our midfield. Would you have done
What
that?
we should have done, Sav, what we should have done actually is bought him from Leeds if we really, they
And
really
kept
thought
him
he
there.
was, and loaned him back to Leeds.
Yeah.
And we
Agreed.
should have bought another centre midfielder in that same summer window who was actually
Agreed.
ready for the first team.
Agreed.
Connor, we lost 3 senior pros in Javier, Lo Celso and Skip, and we didn't replace any of them. Not one. And that's where we went wrong. I've got to shoot, guys. Lovely coming
See you
on.
later, mate.
Thanks, Lubo. Nice to see you, mate.
We'll go. Thanks, Lubo. I will just go for another 10 minutes if you're all right, Connor. You've got 10 minutes. And
Yeah, 10 minutes is good, mate.
We'll wrap up at 20 past. Look, I think the key thing is, I know there's a lot of people that say like it's really harsh on the kids, but look, I can only judge them by what I see on the pitch, right? If Tottenham Hotspur go and buy these players and start them, and equally, if fans want to lose, this is the other thing. Normally, the people that are telling you you're harsh on the youngsters are the ones that have really overrated them, right? Really overrated. Like I hear, oh my God, Bergval's special. It's like, whoa, okay. Look, Bergval, I've seen little flashes that there might be something there, but I've not seen enough in his game to say that I know what he is. Now, people take that, oh my God, you hate Bergval. I don't hate Bergval. Bergval for me is another one. You should have bought him in at 18 and he should have been loaned out to a top championship club and we see what develops.
Well,
Instead,
honest,
we've had to whack him
he was probably
straight
ready for
in our 11.
Bergval was probably ready for a bottom Premier League club because he's physically further along, I think, than a Gray. I think he probably, could have dealt with that probably. And look, the Gray one was really easy. I mean, we easily could have loaned him back to Leeds, couldn't we, for a season had we gone and signed a centre midfielder. And I think, this is the problem. And I think you're now getting to the stage, though, Sav. I think the benefit of keeping them, it's hard. You weigh up, is it better for the development to loan them, or is the benefit for us in that if they stay at Tottenham, they then become club trained from, next season? Is that better for us? Because then that gives us more options for our squad. And that's probably what they've now come to grapple with, given they've already given them this much time. But I mean, we need to have, there needs to be 3 centre midfielders in front of those 2. Gallagher is now 1. Paulinho maybe if we sign him, but and then another.
Well, I'm hearing that somebody said
Simmons might not start. Is it that rumour?
I've heard that rumour. Somebody's saying that Paulinho might have got a knock today, so that Simmons will start. So it will be Gray, Gallagher, and Simmons. Look, the problem is, I'll tell you why I don't go mental. Like somebody said, oh, if Xavi Simmons doesn't start, it's a sackable offence. And it's like, listen, it can't always be one. If one player that you like doesn't start, it's a sackable offence. But again, it really does show the lack of options that we've got. It really is showing the lack of options, because if Paulinho is injured tomorrow, you are down to Gray. I mean, it depends if Basuma's fit, right? It depends if Basuma's fit, whether he wants to play him. But look, it's an interesting one, right? Lots of people saying that the Gallagher will play more in the 10. People saying that's a good idea because he presses. Other people saying it's not. It's a really difficult one, right? Because again, we're trying to fit players in, Connor, without having square pegs in square holes all over the pitch. So somebody is always compensating for not actually having what we need. Do you know what I mean?
For me, I mean, look, I thought Simmons had a fantastic second half against Villa. I thought,
Agreed.
I thought him and Paulinho were brilliant in that second half, and so. And for me, I think, look, Simmons is not acclimatised probably as quick as we had all hoped. But that being said as well, I mean, again, he's coming into a dysfunctional, all of them same things about environment, plus just the transition across. But I've seen enough in Simmons already to go, that's a good footballer, right?
Yeah, of course.
Even what he's just done at Tottenham.
Don't you think year 2 for Xavi Simmons will be the year where we go, right, you've settled now,
and
let's take off?
And by the way, I mean, look, people will use it to use the whole Prem proven argument. I mean, in my opinion, other than when Eze played Dr. Tottenham and we gave him a hat-trick because we didn't want to press him on the edge of the box, I mean, has Eze been any better than Simmons,
No,
in
not
terms
really.
of generally this season? I don't think he has.
Do you know
And
what I can
so,
picture, Connor? I can be, like when you're watching Sky Sports and they have an interview with a player and they go, oh, and it starts off by someone going, it's been a long road for so-and-so. When they first came in, the fans weren't happy, blah, blah, blah. But now, just one player of the month. And I can kind of see that that's a Xavi Simons, a year to settle. I think if anyone says they can't see that he's a really good footballer, then they don't know football. He's clearly got a lot of ability, a lot of talent. But there's a theme, Connor. Everybody's come into just dysfunctional, whether it's change of manager, change of director of football, change of squad. Again, Conor Gallagher's coming in tomorrow, and everyone go on, change everything for Spurs. You're like, whoa, hang on. He's one player coming into, again, a very dysfunctional setup, which is relying on lots of young kids. You've got either Solanke who's not fit, Mawani who can't score goals. You've got Odegaard and Tell as young wingers. You're Gray as a young midfielder. I think that we need to. I think that this year's going to be really tough, and that next year we need to go in with 4, 5, 6 of the deadwood gone, 4, 5 new players come in, and start a season with a fully fit squad and calmness. That's what I think we need to do, Connor.
And that's the thing with Gallagher, though. I mean, look, as we were saying earlier, we all know that we need a ball playing midfield. We all get that, but Gallagher is that type of person. When like all the kids are misbehaving and the adult comes in, and it seems mad to say because he's only 25, but because he's got like a base level of good at everything.
Yeah.
I think he will. I think he will make a big difference actually in midfield.
Agreed.
And not only that, you then if it's him, Pally, and Simmons, you've got 3 players that are established pros in midfield for a change. So I think it will help a lot. But obviously there's so much still we need to do, and it's not going to be the difference between us. I think he raises the floor significantly, is basically what I'm saying, rather than but there's still so much more we need to do.
For sure. By the way, Lubo just messaged me to say, if Darren and his family in Gibraltar are watching, hello to you guys. Much love. Hope for a Spurs win tomorrow. And Lubo loves you lots. I added that last bit on, but to Darren and his family in Gibraltar. By the way, just some transfer news is that Leeds United have submitted an inquiry to Wolves for Strand Larson. That's coming out of Ornstein and Romano, and that Ter Stegen is going on loan to Girona. What a good loan signing that is. Good goalkeeper, Ter Stegen. Yeah, and again, James, I do agree. I feel that sometimes what happens, mate, is one person says something and everyone goes with it. So, for example, somebody says, oh, Conor Gallagher can't pass. You actually watch his compilation videos and watch the boy play. He can pass as well as anyone.
Like, do you know what the biggest one for that is, Sav? Is Maddison is a third, plays well, a third injured, and third poor. Poor. That was such a lazy narrative for anyone that actually watched James Maddison play.
Well,
he does get injured.
James Maddison,
but he's a great player.
This James Maddison, that for 7 years is in the top 8 rank of all midfielders for all of these.
Yeah.
Or this James Maddison with all of these really good numbers. It's mental, isn't it? It's absolutely mental. Do you know what?
I also think, we miss him massively. And I also, one of my things always with Maddison is football fans often like people who run around and do a lot of running, and like seen it over the years with players like Sarr and Højbjerg, and Maddison's got one of the toughest gigs on the pitch because he's got to create goals. And number 10s are notoriously inconsistent. I mean, the amount of bad games I've seen a Bruno Fernandes have, who's a top player, or Ozil or Ericsson back in the day. They have bad games because they're trying to do something that is hard to do, which is create goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we are going to wrap up the show in a minute. Look, somebody just messaged me and said, it's definite that the João Paulinho's got a knock, so probably won't play tomorrow. If that's the case, I guess the question's going to be, does he trust Basuma, who's just got back from AFCON? Does he go with Gray again? I think Basuma and Gallagher would be a monster pairing in central midfield in terms of work rate and energy, wouldn't it? But we'll see. And unfortunately, guys, this is what happens when you don't have the options. Spurs do not have the luxury like whatever he picks tomorrow, just quickly before we wrap up, whatever he picks tomorrow, people will go, oh, look at that front three. And you're like, yeah, but what?
The problem is
who else
it's both
picking?
lack of options and
Yeah,
injuries again. People don't
yeah,
like to hear
yeah,
it, but it is injuries again. You know, with the players we've got missing, obviously.
yeah.
I
I
mean,
think it will
Basuma
look,
had an eventful AFCON, didn't he?
it will
Getting
be
sent off
something.
and scoring a penalty, but
Something like this. Listen, I don't know. It'll be something like this, or if Archie Gray plays, I'm guessing that will be it, or maybe Mawani
probably.
starts
I
there.
don't think he'll risk Solanke. I think he'll give Solanke 30 minutes tomorrow, bring him on.
Yeah,
But I don't think he's ready to start, probably.
yeah. So, but again, it goes to show, like, if I look at that as a front three, when people say, oh, we should be beating West Ham 4 or 5-0, I don't look at that front three. Fair play if they do, but I don't look at that front three and go, that's a three capable of putting a team to the sword. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel like this is a team capable of, if we have 7 chances, scoring 4 of them. But listen, give me a quick score prediction for tomorrow, Connor.
2-0 Spurs.
Yeah.
I think we'll win because I think West Ham are poor. I think I think Gallagher will make an instant impact. Is my prediction. Not in terms of goals and assists. I just mean in terms of just having an impact on the game. So 2-0 Spurs. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with 3-1. I always feel like we're going to concede. I always feel like we are that team. I can picture Jared Bowen wheeling away into the away fans and celebrating. I can just picture it right now. Maybe a couple of headers, and are we ever going to see Mawani score a Premier League goal? I mean, could this be the worst loan in history if he doesn't ever score a Premier League goal? And I think Conor Gallagher, within the first 5 minutes, will show everybody. I'm going first 5 minutes. I think he'll do something that shows everyone, yeah, this is a good signing. Just really, really quickly, before we wrap up, please, here is the link again. Please subscribe to these guys. Can we have one while I'm doing the super chats? Can we please have one last push? Here is, I'm going to do 2 minutes to do the super chats. One last push, right? Gallagher is the new Lampard. I'm not sure anyone's heard me say that. If we, by the way, dude, I don't know if you went to school. That means that I said it. That's a quote. I don't think I've said Gallagher is the new Lampard in any way, shape, or form. Very different footballers.
Very different players.
Very different. I like Conor Gallagher. I'm not going to apologise for liking a player that Pochettino and Diego Simeone both liked. I'm not apologising for that. It's weird. Savva likes professional player who I don't get it. I said it before. No, I didn't. I didn't say he's the. Geez, what are we doing? Dude, listen, mate, I know you want to come in here and just chat shit all the time. Stop, mate, please, or I'll just block you for good. I've never said he's the new Lampard. If you actually listen, the conversation yesterday, somebody else brought up Lampard, and what they said was our fans wouldn't like him when they first signed him, because he didn't have a set ball playing player or a set. That's what the conversation was about. Let's do the super chat. Sorry about that, troll everyone. Aussie Coys said, congratulations on the new channel, lads. Looking forward to watching. Yeah, get over there. Please subscribe to these guys. Show the love. Don't be a dick like full ball. Please show some love to these guys. Thank you very much, Aussie Coys. Thank you. Really appreciate you. Big up to big up to Alfie Hall, who's become a YouTube member as well. Alfie, big up to you, my man. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you, my man. Big up to Alfie, who's come in again and said, where are you watching the game tomorrow after the protest, Savva? In a stadium or a pub? I'm in the game. I'm going to do the protest, then in the game, and then a few beers afterwards. So I'm hoping that people.
You got a ticket? Have you got? Where are you sat, Sav?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell too many people. I'll get stabbed in the stadium or something, mate. Like, are you kidding me? Look, I can't even go 5 minutes on my own channel without someone lying about something I've said.
That's online, mate. No, it's very different.
Yeah, no, I know. I'll message you and let you know privately.
Yeah, no.
So big up to you, Alfie. Yeah, I'm going to the game, and then hopefully we'll have some beers afterwards with the likes of Connor and Sean and all those boys. Big up to you, Alfie. Big up to Atavatron Wembley, who has said Levy must be truly horrified as to how early in the window Gallagher was bought. I mean, was he bought early? I mean, it's the 16th of January. We've moved quicker than deadline day, but Not that early. Big up to you, my man. Big up to Blaine, always very generous. He said, morning, chaps. Sad but honest question. Do you think that Kulu, I'm guessing you mean Kulu and not Lulu the singer, will ever play football again?
She's getting on a bit, Lulu. I don't think she'll play football.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Actually, she'd probably do a better job up front than Mawani. A patella dislocation and muscle cartilage disruption could honestly be career ending. Yeah, I was confused about this kind of when we saw what the injury was and they were saying, oh, 5, 6 months, 7 months. I thought, that feels big to me. That feels like it's a year, and we're getting to the stage where it's looking like it's going to be a whole year out for this lad.
Awful. And you worry, don't you? Because there's been a couple of times where they say, oh, he's back on grass and then he's off again, and that always, he may never come back the same player again, right? So, when people are saying, oh, I don't want to sign Akliouche, for example, because we've got Kudus and Kulusevski who can play out there, it's sort of, I think, my mantra has always been, if you've got the opportunity to sign top players, sign them and then work it out afterwards. Obviously, you need to build the profiles as well. Get that, but having Akliouche in the squad right now would be a massive net positive, wouldn't it?
Of course it would. I think, sorry, for me, just quickly before we go, we are wrapping up. I think the key thing for me is we've got so many now that are tacticos. We must have this, we must have that, we must have this, we must have that. That we're missing the point of building a squad of good footballers, and good squads have lots of different types of profiles. And that's why I think Conor Gallagher's a great signing. That's why I think Akliouche, who can play across 3 different positions, would be a great signing. I'd get him in. Last 2 super chats. So a big up, Blaine. Thank you. Look, it's got to be a worry, right? What will he come back like? Does he get a knock? He wasn't the most mobile anyway in that sense. So we'll see. We'll see. Big up to you. And then Jordan is always very generous to me. Thank you, Jordan Coys. Thank you for your support. Says Newcastle wasn't that attractive when they signed Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali. We are an established big club in the Premier League who are in the Champions League this season. It's inexcusable for us to have this midfield and forward line as a Champions League team. Connor, I can't disagree with any of that. It is inexcusable.
Yeah, it is. And look, wouldn't we love Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali in our midfield? I mean, the two top players. And I think, to be honest, at the time that Newcastle signed them, if we were a serious football club, that we could have beaten Newcastle to that type of signing at that point, because they were still very early in the sort of pith stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, guys, thank you very much. Connor, thank you for your time this morning. I know you've given a lot of your hours.
Thank you so much for pushing the channel as well. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone in the chat for subscribing. I think we've grown by about 150 subscribers just in that time. So really, really appreciate that.
No problem at all. Listen, guys, girls, get over to the whistle at the whistle blows. There is the link. It's the very last comment in the show right there. Please get over there, smash that button. Connor, I'll see you tomorrow at the
see you tomorrow, mate. Yeah.
Protest, and then the game, and then some beers. Everybody else, I'm going to send you over to Football Inc. with Sean and Johnny. Be nice, subscribe to them, like them, join in their show. And news coming through that Man City are edging closer to the deal for Mark Guehi. They don't mess about, do they? Get it done. Move forward. Guys, take care. Much love. And as always, come on, you Spurs.